Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our meetup. We are back after a short break, after our big conference. Let's give people some time to join the stream. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for spending your evening, your morning, or your day with us here in the stream. Today, we would like to talk about design, code, AI, and all this cool stuff. And with me, I have my co-host, Sam. Sam, hello. Are you with me?
Hello, I am here.
Hello. That's so cool. I'm so happy that you're here because you gave a talk at our conference and now we are hosting this together. That's so amazing.
Yeah, representing the peeps on the small teams and, maybe the ones who are in places where they don't have a big community. I live in a big city and I still haven't found the people around me. So it's so nice to connect online with all of you.
Awesome. Perfect. Like always, you also have our Miro board. I will share my screen in a second and also share the link in the chat. Hopefully you can see the Miro board. Yes. Okay. Cool. So feel free to join us in our Miro board. It's our introvert-friendly way of networking. So in the Miro board, you can find some information about into design systems. Also make sure in the Zoom chat to set chat to everyone. Otherwise you will be chatting with us, which is good, cool as well. But if you want to send out a message to everyone, please set it to everyone. So you can find some information about into design systems, about us. And also we have our world map here. So please let us know where you are joining us from. Sam, where are you joining? Where are you joining from today?
I'm in Toronto in Canada.
Toronto, that's
kind of
so
where
cool.
that purple and pink are, down by that little body of water in the middle there. I'm over there. There we are. Let's see. Can I get my mouse? I gotta zoom in. I'm like over here.
Yeah, so already so many people in the chat joining from Barcelona, from Munich. I'm based in Munich as well. Hello from Munich. It's really hot here. You can see my face is red. It's really hot. It's like 34 degrees, I guess. So I'm hiding inside. And we have people from Arizona, from Berlin. Berlin is my second home. Love Berlin. Houston, Mexico, Israel, Prague, Miami, wow, New York City, Toronto-ish, Waterloo, and Vienna and Milan, ciao. And South Carolina, New Delhi, wow. So we have so many people from all around the world joining again. That's so cool to see. So feel free to use the Miro board. And so if you press C, you can leave a comment and let us know about yourself. So I'm here, I'm from Munich. Maybe you can post your LinkedIn link so people can connect with you. And maybe leave a fun fact or something about yourself. So feel free to use this board for networking. I'm usually getting a lot of LinkedIn invitations after the meetup and after the conferences. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, my LinkedIn and also my Twitter, I get so many friends who want to chat about design stuff and bounce ideas back and forth and post what they're working on. And it's so nice to be able to have a community, it feels like, from all over the world. And now I feel like when y'all are in Toronto, we can have a little meetup. And when I'm over on your side of the pond in Europe, we can go for a drink and chat design. It'll be awesome.
Yes, let's do a meetup in Toronto. Sam, you are also a DJ, right? What kind of music do you play?
I play house music and melodic techno, but I love that when it's like, why do I know that little thing in there? And it's like, oh, that was a hip hop song from the early 90s, but somehow it's made its way into this like house and techno. So that's kind of my vibe.
Nice. That's so cool. Yeah, so one day we'll probably do an in-person meetup in Toronto and I want you to play some cool music for the after show party.
It's wild. The more the more designers I talk to, the more I figure out most of us are like, we're into house music, or we DJ, or they play an instrument. It's like the creative people never really stick to just one creative thing. They usually have a bunch. I'd love to know on the Miro board if there's any other people who are really into music. Maybe we can connect on that as well. It'll be fun.
Yes, that would be epic. All right, so let's continue with our Miro board before we start with the presentations. So we also want to highlight our big conference, our big annual online conference, which took place last month. So it took 4 weeks for us to recover because it was huge. It was a huge success with over 700 people joining online. Thank you everyone who has attended the conference. It was a blast. Sam, you presented at the conference. How was it for you?
Terrifying, exhilarating, exciting. I presented later in the first day after all of the heavy hitters had presented all of their new technology. And just like everyone else on the call, I immediately thought, I know nothing. I'm back at square one. I'm a novice. Presented my talk, was able to connect with a lot of people who, you know, share the same sorts of stories that I do. And as a design team of one, we have a bit of a different workflow. So it was nice to connect. And now we all get to learn a bunch of new stuff because there's all these new features and releases coming out. So it's been exciting since then for sure. And I'm really happy to be officially a part of the team now.
Yes, Sam joined us officially as a part of the team as a host. So welcome, Sam, to the Into Design Systems team. I mean, you already mentioned that there were some big names presenting. We had Spotify presenting, we had Token Studio presenting, we had a deep dive into headless design systems, we had the Design Tokens Masterclass, we had how to build a multi-brand, multi-platform design from one design system heart. So many epic talks. If you are interested and want to learn more about it, the recordings are now like on sale. You can get the recordings still. And we also had 3 workshops, how to create scalable design systems with design tokens for multiple brands by Token Studio. So we had Jan Six, Mike Kaminga, Esther Chiran, and Marco Kren. And the workshop was incredible, but we decided to re-record it because Figma decided to launch their variables. So some of the content became outdated, but we re-recorded the workshop, we reworked all the content, and it will be out in 2 days. So if you're interested in this workshop, you can get the recordings. We also had the power of AI in design systems and mastering Figma's composable design library with the world famous Mr. Biscuit, the best UI kit and plugin maker. He knows Figma better than Figma. Okay, so if you're interested in that, feel free to check out all the links. And I will post the Miro board link again.
I think those recordings are a bit of a godsend for me because when I listen live, I'm so in the moment that I don't really absorb. I don't think not even half of it. Then you can go back on the recordings, you can pause and like really let it set in and then go and practice it yourself in a file and try to mimic what's going on. I think it's so nice. And I can't believe you guys took the time to re-record the whole, was a half-day workshop because of the new release.
It was 6 hours workshop, and then of course, the biggest part of the workshop is design tokens. So as they were showing also Token Studio, they needed to update Token Studio, and everything now works with Figma variables, and the content is brand new and will be out in 2 days. So if you're interested to learn how to create scalable design systems with design tokens for multiple brands, learn from the best and check out the recording passes. Okay, so we also have our networking wall, and you can share resources. Please also leave us some feedback. You can post jobs. And we have our 2 amazing speakers. It's time to introduce the first one. So we will have Marcel Bertram. I hope I pronounced it well. I assume you are based in Germany.
I'm located in Germany, yes, right now.
Yes. Where are you joining us from? From which city?
Stuttgart.
Oh, that's amazing. Stuttgart, the hometown of Mercedes and Porsche and all these cool cars, right?
That's right. Automotive hometown, yes.
Automotive hometown. That's cool. Amazing. And you are going to talk about systematic design with code.
Yes, a little bit different mindset maybe for some of the colleagues, especially for designers, I would say. But it's really cool to be here and talk a little bit about our mindset and maybe giving you also some inspiration for different toolings, for different workflows and mindsets.
Yes, that's amazing. I mean, there are new features coming up in Figma and Panport, which are more like code related. So I think your talk will help a lot of designers and a lot of people. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge with our community. And if you're ready, I will stop sharing my screen and you can start your presentation, please. And we will be back after your talk with the Q&A, and people can leave questions in the chat and in the mural board.
Cool. So
Perfect.
Let me share my screen and start the presentation. And
Looks
maybe
good.
you can, looks good?
Yeah, looks good. Let's go, Marcel.
Cool. Then, yeah, looking forward for the next, I think 30 minutes for presentation, a little bit of a demonstration to also give some practical insights into what I am talking about. Maybe in the meantime, I saw on the Miro board, it would be really interesting for me, like to better understand the audience. So I don't know if there is any possibility to understand if today we are more into the designer roles, or maybe also some developers or hybrids are here in this meetup. Would be really interesting for me. So maybe also some first introduction from my side. So I'm located in Germany, in Stuttgart. I'm a freelancer, so founder and consultant for, I would say, creating design cultures in different organizations, from smaller companies to larger scale companies, and especially focusing on practicing UX designs independently of your role. So we also want to enable different roles besides of the pure professional designers. So for example, product owners, product manager, project leads, or also developers in practicing UX design. So that's really our profession, and we are really excited to do these things together. And I also brought some of our practices, our mindsets today, especially focusing on the design process implementation. And you already introduced or said that we all want to connect and stay in contact. So here is also a QR code. So if you're interested in getting in touch with me, if you have some further questions and exchange, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I'm looking forward for interesting discussions and talks afterwards. And maybe we also have the chance of meeting us in person in one of the events upcoming this year. So then, let's start. But before directly jumping into why I say we want to foster code-based design systems, I want to first introduce a little bit about my personal mindset, about our mindset, so that you can better evaluate and follow me in the next steps. So first things first, our mindset of UX design is that good UX design, as I already introduced in the beginning, it requires everyone to understand and do UX design. So not just the UX designers in general, so the professionals, but also the different roles in the teams independently, if they are a UX designer or not. And therefore, in our understanding, you need to have the right mindset or a unified mindset about UX design. It's really important to better understand what UX design is about. And then you need the right tools, and especially an understanding of the workflow, so the sequence of doing these different phases of UX design. And of course, then the knowledge to use these tools correctly. And one tool, for example, is a design system in our understanding. So first, about the mindset. I usually start with this because sometimes we have a different understanding about design, especially in the management or stakeholders that are not really familiar with the practice of design. So that's really important also in our understanding to share this. So I have to say, good design is more than static and the visual design. So it's not just about the appearance and UI design, interface design. There is really more aspects, more in the scope of good design, good UX design. So for example, we have the research and testing part. We have writing. So the copywriting, for example, is really important for the experience in general and for good experiences and good design. We also have accessibility. You will see later on why this is also really important if you talk about code-based design systems. So making all the interfaces and all the content, the functionality available to everyone, and do not exclude some people by design. And it's also about front-end development. So code is also an essential part of good design, of good experience designs. And another point from the mindset perspective, good design includes the implementation, of course. So we want to use Figma and other tools to create designs. We also use code to implement, to ship the experiences and the products. But it's really also about the discovery phase. So doing research and doing testings and support the organizations, the people in easily exploring different possibilities and easily exploring which variant may be the best one. So it's also not just about implementation, but covers more phases in order to deliver and to ship good experiences to the users with a valuable outcome based on the goals. So having a look on the solution discovery, it's in our understanding all about ensuring and empower lean prototyping. So we want to have the right tools in place, and we want to have the knowledge to apply these tools in order to fake things. So discover multiple possible solutions and understand and test which solution is the best one before starting the implementation. And when talking about prototyping, in our understanding, there's a difference between static prototyping. So for example, static screens or interactive prototypes, where you, for example, want to test and discover journeys, interactions with some logic. So where you guide users through a potential future solution or future experience. And there is really a difference between these types of prototypes and also the workflow and the tools you maybe need to set up these kind of artifacts for testing very efficiently. And when having a look on the implementation side, so after we found a solution, we validated a solution, we want to implement this solution. And really, I have to say, please, don't ship shit. I heard this quote once when I visited the IBM design studio in Austin. There was a really large poster with this quote. And it's really important that we don't or take the time and spend effort in implementing and releasing, publishing qualitative products, qualitative experiences. And that's why we also come up with design systems. They help us to ensure high quality, but respecting the time and the budget. So that was a little bit about the mindset of UX design. Hope, or maybe I think some of you already know this, but it's also important for me to point this out again so that you can follow me. Second part is about the tools and knowledge. So in order to empower everyone, every role in an organization or in a project to deliver UX design or practice UX design, it's really important to have the right and state-of-the-art tools available and know how to use them. So across or along this path, for example, in the validation and implementation phase, it's really important to have the right and state-of-the-art tools available. For example, a design system, or for example, the design tools that enable you and empower you to facilitate design system components and styles that are available for lean validating and for qualitative implementation, as mentioned already in my previous slides, what is important about Code UX design. So what is this tools about? I heard a lot of design tokens, the new features that Figma just released. I think you also mentioned it in the introduction today. So everyone is really hyped about Figma bridging the code and the design world. And there's also some interesting quotes, for example, get clean code in one click. And in my understanding, in our understanding, this is maybe not the best approach to get through these processes, because I will give you a little bit of introduction into my mindset or into our mindset later on. In our understanding, there is only one source of truth, and it's the reality. With reality, I mean the reality of the application. So the websites, the apps that we release, and they are basically made of code. They are not vectorized designs that are made of code, so lines of codes. And this is the reality, this is the source of truth. So in our understanding, code should be the source of truth, and also design systems should be code-based and should be the source of truth. And you should rather think about bridging these realities into the world of designers. So it's not about get clean code in one click, but rather reuse the clean code that is available in code-based design systems and make these codes available as easy as possible for designers and for example, creating prototypes very easy and very fast forward. So usually the problem with design tools, especially vector-based design tools like Figma, is that they only represent a limited scope of this reality. So reality is made of code, applications are made of code, but these design tools are not capable, at least at the moment, to cover all these different aspects of the reality. So we have some missing aspects of, for example, in the appearance, but we also have a lot of missing scope in interactions, for example, in different states, in the responsiveness of our applications. So having fluid interfaces, for example, is very, very hard to build and rebuild with these vector-based design tools and design systems. And we, of course, also have topics with regards to accessibility. So how to build up these components with different states. Maybe you never heard of these states that are required for being accessibility compliant, like a focus state. I also see this quite often in design systems, that these aspects are really missing, because this is also an aspect in the scope of interaction and something that is part of the code, but maybe not part and not represented in the designer's world. And we also have other topics like performance issues or compatibility stuff with the different browser requirements that you maybe are not able to build the reality based on what you thought of and you ideated in the designer's world. So just brought some of these aspects that I also or that we're facing from time to time, building up design systems in vector-based design tools like Figma, whereas we see then later on in building this in the code that there is some problem in representing and bridging this code-based reality into the designer's world. For example, fluid type scales. So if we don't want to have breakpoints for styles, if we want to do calculations for different sizes, for line heights, or for spacings, depending on the viewport, and we have quite a lot of viewports, then at the moment, maybe with variables, will be easier to come up with this flexibility. But back then, it's really hard to represent this kind of flexibility. Also having a look in the detail. So if you're aware of development, auto layout versus the native developers grid and flex, actually, if you know both worlds, they behave different because it's just a representative of the reality and not covering the complete scope of the code world. And we also have usually the problem that it's really hard to rebuild all the different states that we have in the code, that we have the reality, focus states, hover states, active states, a lot of different variants that you need to build up in components in order to have the full scope that the developers then will later have with the code-based design system. And for example, also interesting topic, I had to explain quite a lot to designers that components sometimes behave different because from the original semantics, it is a different element. Maybe it's looking the same. So we have a button and a link, for example. They sometimes look the same. So you click on something and then a new page is opening or an event is happening, but they are totally different in the logic. And they also have, for example, different states. So really have to understand what you're working with and what the reality is about and what your developers are using in order to build up these applications. And then, of course, there is also the logic about which is integrated into components on the code side as well. I will give you a little bit of a practical example later on, just to bring up some of these aspects. And the main message here is that code, so the reality we build our applications with, is at the moment a lot more than you can represent in the design world. That's actually not the most critical problem, but you need definitely to be aware of this. And I also brought some ideas, some inspiration, how you maybe could improve this mindset and also the design workflow in the future. There are some great tools coming up, and it's also dependent on what you really have to do and what your intent is in the design phase and in the design workflow. So these different environments, so do you have the role of a developer? He is living in his environment. He has to take care of semantics, of compatibility, of accessibility, building up the things also with different states and interaction possibilities in his world. And then there is also his or her world. And then there is also the design part, the design resources, where you have your vector-based tools most of the times like Figma. So you really don't have the same scope available. So there is also a lot of risk or potential of misunderstandings, so miscommunication, although a designer and a developer is building the same stuff, talking about the same thing. They live in a different environment, they have different resources, different tools, and this can result or end up in a miscommunication, inefficiency, or then at the end in a bad implemented quality or unintended quality for the users. So the idea that I want to bring with me today is to have the code as a source of truth for design and for the implementation. So the heart of a design system is the code-based components, and we want to bridge these source of truth with APIs, with other possibilities into the designer's world and not the other way around, where you define all these specifications in the design tool and try to automate the creation process of having these components, these coded components from the design. Because keep in mind, it's not possible to cover the complete scope with the vector-based design tools. There will always be some missing aspects that you do not, or you are not able to cover at the moment. And the application in the end is built up of the code-based design system components and not directly from the design tool. And usually also with design systems, you have a, I would say, static environment. You usually do not change a lot in the appearance, in these stylings, if you have a design system, within 3 or 4 years, or maybe 2 years if you do a redesign and a rebranding. But usually design systems, that's the idea of having these standards. They are very static in the component structure, and you are more creative and flexible with building up and creating interfaces with these static components. So if the code-based design system is the source of truth for design systems, the design workflows usually in the projects, in the organizations we consult, is more use the design environment. So for example, the vector-based design tools like Figma for fast explorations and the initial specifications, because you cannot cover 100% scope of the component at the end. Then you take this, maybe you do some first exploration testings, and you start developing 100% scope of the components, of the styles, in close collaboration with the designer and in close communication with the designer, and then you build the 100% solution. Usually you have more scope than the initial specification of components. And then there is the potential, also automated from time to time, to sync back these results into the design environment. So we have the 100% qualitative code implementation, qualitative component, and we want to sync what we need back into the design environment. So to have the static representation of these code-based component then back in our design tool in order to continuously work and build up static or interactive prototypes using these components. And for the third point here is really important, that we only have to sync back into the design world what is really needed in order to do these prototypes and experience developments. So having a look back on the workflow, on the phases, this code-based design system and creating 80% of a component, then 100% in the code with the components, and syncing these back, making these components and definitions again available for the solution discovery, enables a lean and integrated workflow for the design organization, because both designers and developers in the product teams or the project teams are using the same source of truth, they're using the same material, and there is no risk, no potential for miscommunication, because everyone is really using the same and everyone is using what the real application, the reality is built with the code. And in the solution discovery, as mentioned in the beginning, sometimes you have to explore a static prototype. You want to do a design test, for example, comprehension test based on a screenshot. Then you still are able to use these vector-based design tools, because you do not need these 20% of the missing aspects and scope, because you can test what you want and you get the results that you need. For interactive flows, where you really want the users, for example, to enter some data into input fields, you have more advanced logic, you also have different states, and you have a complete journey to test. For example, in a usability test, moderated, unmoderated, whatever, then maybe a code-based design system with tools that you can facilitate, like UXPin. So in my understanding, it's the only tool in the market at the moment to facilitate design explorations based on real coded components. But with these tools, you can easily, for example, with the storybook integration or the package integration, very easily without much of an effort, facilitate these code-based components in order to build up interactive prototypes and test them with users. Very realistic, and 100% what you will then also ship after the testing to your users with the implementation phase. So I already introduced UXPin. The main benefit of UXPin is basically it's a design tool. So you should be familiar also with the setup with the functionalities that you can use. The main difference here is that it's not a vector-based representative of code, but you can really use what your developers are also using for building up the real application, but just in the environment, in the lean environment of a design tool. So you can also drag and drop these elements, these real code-based components, and you can build up interactive flows and test them, for example. And as promised, there's a lot of theoretical information. I also promise you to have a little bit of a sneak preview into these toolings, and I want to point out and show you the main differences I just mentioned in these slides before. So I just built up a random use case. It's like a login flow where I already created a design system. So I think most of you are really familiar with building up design systems. So we have these different variants and yeah, different components that we need in order to create a login flow. And for examples, for the styles, what I mentioned, this design system is a completely fluent design system. So the idea is that we do not have breakpoints, for example, for text sizes, but we want to make them fluently scaling up and down, dependent on the width of the devices you show these up. In Figma, actually at the moment back then when we created this, maybe it's possible with variables, I don't know, but we can chat about this, but it was not possible to completely create this fluid stylings for the typography here. And then when building up these interface, we have these components. It's basically a representation of an input field. And we also created some first variants, for example, for the input type password in order to represent an input for password. And then there is the button as well with the different variants. And we also have some further interactions that you usually have with, for example, password fields, show and hide toggle button. But it's, as you see here, static representation of the interface. So if I would jump into the preview mode and test this with users, of course, I could do a design test. I could ask them for the comprehension. Okay. That's, I don't know if I'm the only one.
Yeah, shit happens. Sigma failing here as well. Yeah. Figma.
Cool. Yeah.
This is the demo effect at full force.
This is the live demo effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I think you can, I mean, it's basically the same as the mode here. So you are not able to really interact with this interface. There is no possibility of easily toggling the password. There is also no possibility, I mean, with some hacks, with some plugins, some additional effort, for example, you could do this and you do not have a focus state as well. So having said this, I hope that your UX-Pin is not broken at the moment. So this is a preview of UX-Pin where we integrated the same design system, but we integrated a code-based design system. So we do not have these components here. So we do not manage the design system using these design components, but it's really an integration of the code packages. So we just integrated what developers also are using. They just some basic explanation. They downloading a package where all the components live in, and then they start using these components in their source code. And the same thing is then now here applied. We have this library directly available. So we have all the components available and that the developers have, the main difference here is that it's really the coded component. So we also have the same configuration possibilities, the same props as our developers have. So not more, not less, just the same props, which also supports the exchange, the limitations that developers, for example, also have, because you cannot easily detach a component and try to rebuild some stuff. It's really just one source of truth, the same thing as our developers have. And you can easily, with the same experience, for example, as I have with Figma, build up this login flow using auto layout and creating this view. And now if you jump into the preview mode here, you will realize that it's really behaving like a real application. That's because it's real code. So if you would inspect the source code here, if you would inspect the elements, you will realize that in this design tool, in this preview mode, it's really the same component as your developers then will later on build up the application and ship the real application. So the cool thing about here is, for example, as well, as it's an email field, you, for example, also have the baked-in functionality of your browser with the password manager, because having said this once again, it's the real code. That's why the browser also realizes and recognizes this as a real email field and a real password field. And you directly have this functionality of toggling the password, for example, baked in without creating a lot of variants and logic in the Figma component or in the component as a representative, because it's the real coded component and you baked in and directly get all these functionalities from scratch. And to show you also some other example, so if I would create and use also more complex, more difficult component, like with the registration flow here. So we would also have a more advanced, more complex component like the step navigation. So this easy possibility of drag and drop these elements, as you know, from different design systems, and just with the real component. And the cool thing here is, if you go in the preview mode, you would have additional functionality, additional layers of a design of a component that you would not be able, in my understanding, at least at the moment, with vector-based design tools. So for example, you have a horizontal scrolling here because it's baked in. You also have these arrows showing up, jumping to the next step. And you also have different possibilities of showing up here. So if I create a very easy design flow that I want to test, you see that you also are able to trigger and to use these components, these different states and variants of these components, for example, changing the state from one step and to complete it, to jump back here. So you have these easy possibilities of additional functionality that you definitely are not able to build up with vector-based components. And last but not least, these are just some aspects. I said we also have these accessibility layer. So for example, the focus state using the keyboard navigation is also represented here. Just from scratch, because it's the real coded component and not a representative. You do not have to take care of this outline, and you do not have to take care of building a logic if this element is addressed with the keyboard navigation to show this up or not, because it's directly baked in and already available without any additional or further efforts from the developers or from the designers. So this is basically about the demonstration. I also have to take care about the timing, just jumping back into the last slide of my presentation. Basically some key takeaways. And again, my QR code for my LinkedIn for further discussions about this very interesting topic. So key takeaways from my side for you is keep in mind that design is more than static and visual design. So it's not about the appearance, about the UI design. There is more, the reality is more, there are more aspects, more of the scope, and the reality, so the applications of our users is made of code. So in my understanding, we should also take care that the source of truth, as our developers are shipping these products with code, that the source of truth for the design system should also be the code. And we should think about possibilities of bridging the gap from this source of truth into different worlds like the designer's environment with other tools. But you need to ensure that this source of truth is really implemented on the highest possible qualitative standards. Otherwise, you would also scale this bugs or missing functionality, missing quality into the other worlds like the designer's world. And it is essential also for designers, in my understanding. So I am not a developer. I would also say that I'm not 100% designer, but I am interested in both worlds. I want to understand both worlds, and I also want to understand the working material. So what is the full scope? What is accessibility about? What is the semantics about? What is the mental world of developers? And what is then the reality of our working material, of the components that we use to build up products and experiences? It's really important to be curious about this full scope in order to avoid misunderstanding and inefficiencies, in my understanding. And code-based design systems, as you only have one source of truth made up of code, really help you and your organization in advocate for this kind of an understanding and the full scope understanding of how to build up applications and use components. And keep in mind, at the moment, vector-based design tools won't cover 100% of the scope of code. There will always be some things missing, some logic missing, some states missing, some configurations missing, but there is also no need to cover 100% in the design world if you are taking care of the intent of the design tool. So last point, both static and interactive prototyping is valuable or are valuable, and you just have to take care of the intent. So if you are in the solution discovery, if you want to find out some comprehension or some preferences for two different static designs, then of course a design tool, a vector-based design tool is valid to create this static prototype. But for example, if you want to do journey testing, usability testing with a lot of interactions, a complete journey, then you maybe should consider reusing a code-based design system and facilitate this kind of tools, because having a developer available to build up these prototypes is usually a little bit more of an effort compared to making these code components available for designers or for other stakeholders in the designer's world in design tools. So that's it from my side. Maybe back to the host and some questions if there is still some time left, possibility for questions.
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you, Marcel, for the amazing presentation. Please give Marcel a big round of applause in the chat. Really, really cool. Now we finally know what the source of truth is for design systems. Design Twitter will be, Design Twitter is always discussing what is the source of truth. Is it design or is it code? Now we know it's the reality.
at least in my understanding, but of course, I'm open for other thoughts on this. But with the new technologies, with the new possibilities, there is also and always maybe the possibility and the time to rethink our mindsets and our center of the universe.
Yes, of course. Like you said, these design tools will never 100% represent the code or the functionalities you can use in code. That's kind of something what made me think about, yeah, what the fuck? We will never be like designers and developers. They somehow need to meet in the middle or in a tool or somewhere. How can we do that? Why isn't it aligned? But with UX Pen, you can do a lot. I didn't know that there are these features. That's cool.
Yeah, there was a sidebar conversation happening while you were giving your talk, and I wanted to poke you a little bit about this. So you mentioned the classic link versus button, and somebody in the chat said, so somebody mind explaining to me what this is all about? So I gave a little blurb, and it made me think, how, in your opinion, can we help designers start to figure out a little bit more about the code base side of things? So I only learned the difference between the two because I committed that fatal sin. I had a link looking exactly like the text button, and then a developer said to me, no, they go to different places, there's different logic, and I had to be educated. So I'm curious, in your opinion, how can we start to help designers figure out, what is the right way? What's the right component to use? How would you help somebody who's trying to figure that out start their journey of maybe trying to think more like a hybrid or a little bit like a developer?
Yeah, so it's really cool point. That's why I also put it into the presentation. So maybe one first explanation, a metaphor of why a link in a button is, or what a link in a button is about. I always explain this to people with the elevator buttons. Usually have these buttons for closing and opening the door. This is event-based. This is usually a button. And then there is the floors 1, 2, 3. It's navigating you to a different location. Although basically it's the same button, same size, same specifications, same typography, they have a different behavior. One is lifting you to a different location. This is a link, navigational element. And then there is a button. As a designer, you would say, okay, they're looking the same. Why do I have to take care about this? But it's a different interaction, also important for developers for shipping quality and not building up any JavaScript stuff that is not really compliant and not accessible for all the users. And for your second question, I think facilitating this kind of mindset and also introducing this kind of tools really help to start a conversation and the interest, the curiosity for designers. So if you see a component library with a button and a link, and you realize in the prop section that the link got a target and the button don't, and the button got, for example, a loading state, which basically by semantics is not available for links. So links do not have loading states. Then you are starting to realize that there is a difference, and you maybe ask your developers more about the reason behind this. And yeah, so this is why I think it's also really cool to have these worlds merged together and facilitating also real code components in the environment of designers.
And more real conversations between the people who write the code
Yes.
and the people who are using the components in design and prototype, so that we can start to bridge that gap by one brick at a time, because we can't just jump across the lake or the river, right? We got to build up that bridge.
Yes, and there's not every developer also aware of these differences, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Really cool. Are there any more questions? I have a question.
Yeah.
Should designers learn how to code? Classic. In your opinion, if you think about what's coming up for, if you think about what's coming up for design tools now that they are using also a different language like strings and all these codes namings for variables, for example. So what is a string? What is, I don't know, a variation?
I would say no. I think designers have their own profession you should not be able to code. I mean, coding, like building real stable qualitative applications is a lot more than dragging and dropping around components, and building these components is very heavy thing. Like building a button, for example, it looks quite easy, but building a really good button is hard work to do if you cover all these different aspects that I introduced. But if you have these code-based components and you have this available, and facilitate this for designers, I think you do not have to be able to code, but you should be able to understand the material and that you're working with. I think there's a difference between understanding and being able to code.
Yes, I agree with that. When I was interested in designing apps, I studied these human interface guidelines. I studied this Swift computer language and tried to understand the concepts, but I did not learn how to code because it was frustrating.
I think like tools like your Xpin, for example, they are similar. You have this logic layer where you can like with like this first Lego Mindstorm stuff. As a child, when you learn programming, it's about easy dragging and dropping and connecting things, but you still use the same and real coded components. They have the same limitations, have the same opportunities, same states, and you can easily build this together into an interface, into a journey that you can test, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, in my opinion, you don't have to learn how to exactly code, how to write a function, a class, but it's worth learning about the concepts like inheritance or what it does. So I think that's really helpful if you study, so you can study the applications and the thinking and logic behind it. I think that's really helpful, but not really knowing how to write a function, a class, or how to really code.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it
think,
would be great if you, it's a big bonus, but it takes a lot of time and efforts and practice. So from my experience, if you don't code daily, then you can start again from scratch in about a week, learning how to code.
Yeah, I think as a designer, you should rather, if you try to learn or start learning the code world, then it's about front-end design. Maybe semantics is also important for accessibility. So what kind of components are existing as a browser standard? There is a button, there's an input field and all this stuff. And then some basic ideas, for example, about layouting. You maybe also ask your developers, your front-end developers, what things you should know and start learning. And I think then it's the difference that you are not able maybe to build this interface, this application, but know what is behind the visual layer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, like also Victor mentioned in the chat, the question is not if they should learn how to code, but how much of coding should they know? I like that. Yeah. Awesome.
There's a couple of questions on the Miro board. One of them says, in the UX pin workflow presented, component creation would start on the code side, and then you start designing in UX pin and restyling. What's needed inside of UX pin? So I think they're talking about if you wanted to make some changes for the styling, would you do that in UX pin, or are you just using UX pin to do the prototyping?
No, actually, the design workflow for building up design systems, in my understanding, there's a difference between a design system team or design system creation and the actual product team that is building the user experiences. Because maybe there you need to be more explorative, whatever, but a design system is usually more static. So the workflow for building up the design system is actually like starting either in UXPin or in Figma, whatever you like, doing the explorations, the 80% of the scope. So maybe I do not have all the different variants, all the different states defined in Figma, because it's getting really complex, as you saw with the input field, for example, with the password toggle, the text input can also cover a lot more of types, email type, date type, whatever. So you do not have to specify all this, but just the basic appearance, the basic states, and then you hand this over to the developers. They build the real coded component 100%, and then you include this package into the UX pin, and actually the developers in the teams also include the same package into building the real application. And then of course, if you want to change something in the component, you have to touch the code, because it would also, it's like the reality. If the real product team wants to change something in the component, they also need to touch the code and not do something in the design library. And that's also the workflow, how you maintain and optimize the library. If you want to do something, you have to touch the real code base and release a new package, both for the real product organization, but also for the design system library.
Awesome. Do we have time for one last question?
Yes, one last question we can do.
Okay. How to convince about code prototyping versus Figma? Spicy conversation. Pros and cons of prototyping in Figma versus code. So I think they like your idea. Now they want to take this home and try to get buy-in, and they're looking for some help on how to plead their case. I think that's what I'm reading from this.
Yeah, I think there's also UX been part of this conversation today, maybe someone from Figma. My understanding is the ideal world is to have both. You have the code-based design system, or you should have, because you're building your real applications with this. So if you have this, you can very easily start building up a UX pin library, because it's possible to directly include the code package or the storybook, and you have these components already available in UX pin. Maybe you need to do some cleanup there, but they should be already available and be able to use. So you can start exploring the differences, the benefits, also the experience of the design tool. So maybe you are not totally familiar with the Xpin experience compared to Figma, but like in my daily work, also with different clients, we usually use both tools depending on your intent, as I said, or also on your organization preferences and on your designer preferences. We also have some designers that do the first explorations and also static designs with the Xpin, because you can create a screenshot out of this. But usually the Xpin is more into the interactive world, and the Figma for the static world, because different reasons, personal interest and possibilities, capabilities of these different tools. I would encourage you to try both, and then convince stakeholders or others by the benefits of the different tools. And
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcel, for dropping so much knowledge. Enjoy the rest of the meetup and hope to see you soon. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
All right. So before we jump into our next presentation, which is Designer in the Loop, AI Jam using Figma and OpenAI. Wow, what the hell? That sounds really, really cool, Davo. I'm looking so much forward to what you have been cooking again. Let's have a quick look at our Miro board before we move on to the next presentation. So we wanted to network and let people post where they are joining us from. Let's have a look. Many people from Europe. It's really hot in Europe. The weather is crazy. So probably many of you are hiding inside. Thanks for joining us tonight. We also have people from the US, and we have somebody from Kenya joining. Wow, that's so cool. Welcome, James. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to use the Miro board for networking. So you can leave a comment, for example. Oh, we also have somebody from the Himalayas. Oh my God, that's so cool. So feel free to use it for networking. Leave your LinkedIn link or your Twitter link. We want you to become design system friends to make the most out of this meetup. And we also have our icebreaker session. We do every time, because we want to know if a picture could describe your design system, work, knowledge, or current mood, how would it look like? So I put this, I put Neo here because I'm like blown away by what you can do with Token Studio. Now that there is AI, you can create prompts to let ChatGPT create design tokens for you. It's like, wow. You remember when we had those times where you, like in Sketch, you created static buttons and we had no symbols, we had nothing, and you could now create kind of a prompt, and ChatGPT is creating all the design token structure. You copy paste it into Figma, and it's like crazy. So much to learn now. So I feel a little bit like Neo exploring. And also we have, probably somebody working on the design system documentation or trying to figure out how to name components. Feel free to post your current mood, like look for a meme or something, and we'll have a look at this board afterwards. So now it's time to say hello to Davo. Davo, what's going on? Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And Davo, you have been presenting at our conference, some amazing, cool new stuff. And now you're back with more.
Yeah, it was also, as you were mentioning earlier, so recovering, that's the keyword, right? It was very intense. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. And I happened to relate a lot about what was said earlier about, feeling that, I'm a designer, and I know how to code, and I have some crazy ideas and try to put them in action quickly. But then while putting together content and ideas and a story in some way, I was never kind of prepared to see the amount of work that the Spotify team has put together. And it was feeling, I believe I told you that, I felt an immense amount of imposter syndrome. Like, it was almost, it was kind of terrible. And and I essentially started to chop off content because, first, one of the demos, it was like, oh, this is like 10x better than it was even present. So it's not about it, it's not that my take is about to impress people, but I really wanted to build something that is inspirational for people to try out, stuff and whatnot. But when you see another team, and this is kind of the quality of collaboration and focus, when you have that ability within the team and the bandwidth and the resources to do it, they just came out of the gate with probably one of the most futuristic not only presentations, but ideas put in place. Later, we learned that part of all of that magic is related to what Figma was about to present weeks from there, from that moment, which is Figma variables, which even today, I've been playing a lot lately with it, and it's a little power, you know what I'm saying? We need to take a step back. And this is hopefully will be the spirit of this jam session, because what I want is designers to be more creative. I know we're busy. I know we have deadlines, and with the pressure of all of these tools is like, I remember when I was a kid, in the magazines, there were like this very old computers that at the time were super modern. And the advertising for those computers were like a computer new for your kid, and next the picture of Einstein or someone like that. And it was like, I'm just a kid. I just want to play with the computer, I don't want to be compared with freaking Galileo, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just a dude. I want to have fun with this and learn with it, which is the best way to grasp something and own it. Knowledge is something that if you don't put it in action, it's just a shiny new object. And we need to be very mindful about those things and have a mindful practice towards, whatever it is that is, about designing or coding. I believe the boundaries between our disciplines are starting to blur more and more. And with these tools that allows us to essentially be a tourist on very complex topics very quickly, it's going to be even more that way. You will have the ability to just build your own story. If you want to become a data analyst because you're obsessed about just figuring out the truth behind events or whatever, you just can start copy pasting data into these tools, and you will have a lot of new questions probably. So hopefully it will be about that. There are some stuff regarding tools and plugins. It's very unstructured. It has a story. Hopefully it will make sense. And there's one or two parts that might be a little bit like deep into the roots of prompt engineering, but bear with me because I believe it's one of these things that we need to learn. And by really learn how to do it, how to use it, we can just get a lot of not only fun, but possibilities. This is an era for making your idea a reality.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the purpose of a jam, right? To bounce ideas, to share ideas. And
and Davo, as one person who experienced some serious imposter syndrome during the conference to another, thank you for sharing anyways, because you inspired the heck out of me. And I'm sure that by both of us saying we both have this imposter syndrome, everyone else in the chat is like, oh, they're human too, just like me. It's okay that I feel imposter syndrome. I was talking to Gleb, who did a short 5-minute pitch and has created some amazing plugins after the conference. And he also said, oh man, after that, I'm just feeling this crazy imposter syndrome. So we're all in it together. We're all figuring it out as we go, So thank you.
Yes,
absolutely. I really relate with your words, Sam, earlier. I was trying to find your avatar on my Zoom, but this session is going to be very hectic, or I don't know, as everyone knows, Figma is having a massive event. So let's see if, how the API is working, because that's our life.
Check. Yeah. In the meantime, we can tell people what the heck we are talking about. So we had our big annual conference, and we had Spotify speaking and presenting the future of design systems is automated. And as far as I know, they have been, for the first time, they have been sharing that many details. And we are really proud that we had them speaking at our conference. So it was really big for us as well. And we had a lot of amazing speakers. We had Sam, we had Davo sharing all their knowledge. It was really cool because this conference is very hands-on, advanced, practical content. It's organized by the community, for the community. So we look for community members to share their knowledge. And if you want to know more about it, the recordings, you can get the recordings. And some of them we also post on YouTube. All right, I will stop sharing my screen. Is Figma back up? Because you will probably need it, right, for your.
Yes, if I refresh my session, I will be gone, and it will be very, very fun. So let's give it a shot.
Damn. All right, let's jam. I'm looking forward to this AI Figma jam. I'm really excited. Thank you so much, Davo, for like jamming with us.
Of course, thank you for the opportunity. And again, as I was trying to say earlier, this is going to be very unstructured because there are so many things to cover.
It's a jam. That's kind of the style, the vibe of a jam. We don't expect a story or anything. Just start jamming, and feel free to let us know if you need us, or we can be part of the jam or whatever. Just let's kick off the jam. I want to jam now.
Let's go. Yeah. So okay. All right. I'm Davo. I'm from New York. My handle on Threads and Twitter is Pixelbit. I recently learned that pixel comes from. Let me see if I can find this again. Let's start doing this. Text. So, was it This is not gonna work. Not gonna work. Okay. Let me see if this works. Yeah. So I learned that in computer graphics, pixel, it means picture element. That is the acronym that we know today as pixel, which is insane. And I'm on a journey to learn 3D and to learn the whole thing, not just how to code, but also to fully learn this space, because it's a space that is going to be more and more around what we do, and it's kind of complicated, because we're having been very, very busy discussing the evolution of design systems, from naming conventions to should I name my layers to whatever, even documenting the name of a component, even naming a component. It really feels like we are essentially a big family and we have a lot of issues. But now this 3D thing is coming, and I wanted to be prepared. So a couple of years ago, I started learning Blender and whatnot. But as soon as I started coding, I realized that I didn't know much about it. And I realized by reading, even actually yesterday, that yeah, pixel means picture element and texture element means texel. So I have another handle which is called texel. I will never use it, but I just created it for the gigs, But yeah, so today we're gonna talk about AI and where things are today. But I really want you to just to help paint this idea in your head that this is a moment in history in technology that probably will never happen again this way, in terms of the how vibrant and how terrifying and how everything feels like it's like FOMO by 1,000. Obviously, this generates a ton of anxiety, and it's kind of hard to navigate. But the thing that I really want to convey to you folks today is, in whatever space you are right now, you are super important in this conversation. You have autonomy, agency, you have a critical mind, and you're very empathetic. If you're a designer, you have qualities that this moment really needs. And AI is giving us this possibility that it was almost, even by design, by the systems that are in place, was forbidden to us to have access to this level of knowledge, to have access to this level of speed to thought, a speed from understanding something to really grasping the thing, to really thinking about the thing and meditating about it creatively. That is the key word, So what I really want to put in your head is this idea that this is a moment for you to bring your ideas to life, right? And this means even from the smallest thing that you always thought, oh man, someone needs to make this thing, but I really don't know how to do it. That is exactly the mindset that you need to be on, but now you need to start executing some of those things. And how to do it, I will not show you how, because that will probably take all the fun, all the journey point, all the moments that you want to learn by yourself and earn, and while I was watching the previous presentation and that question about should designers learn to code or not, that is the wrong question. And after years of understanding, I want to learn how to code. I know how to code in several languages, and it's a lot of fun. And coding is just a language, right? Coding is, as we are polyglots, and Spanish person from Argentina. English is my second language. Design is my third language. Programming is my fourth language. And you can think about everything we do as different high-level symbols and models we use to communicate with each other, but in this era with machines. So just escape from this idea of should designers code. Don't try to learn how to code. Learn how to fetch. This is the key. If you want to start owning this journey and making this something that is meaningful to you, you need to start moving away from, oh, I need to learn how to do a for loop. I need to learn how to build this in a way that is, perfect code. It's very well documented. No one cares about that. The only thing you need to know today is how to take input from one side of the internet and put it on this other side of the internet. This is what the internet used to be a couple of, probably a decade ago. It was fun. It was ruthless. It was a moment for, creatives and hackers to join hands and build very weird shit. And then, corporations happened and products and the digital life just took on. And we, in some way, started to do that less and less and started to just to build foundational things to make this whole universe more sensible. And it makes sense to go through that process. But you'd never need to stop being a weirdo on the internet in terms just between a million air quotes, because weirdo is like a weird thing. I mean, just do weird shit, dude, on the internet. Just connect things, build things that are very bizarre. Try to understand what you are trying to do here with this, right? So I have a ton of other things here on these slides, but what I want to start with something. And this is a demo that I built for the conference last year, and this is still stuck with me because this is something that is very, I believe, very useful. Rasmus and Rasmus Inter, you know what who I'm talking about. Rasmus made this. Oh, this is not gonna work. Actually, come on, let's do it. Let's try it one more time. I was not ready for that type of action. Just give me one more second. I want to see. Well, I have another version of this, which is the only thing we care. So, do you know that on the web we have sites like this, plenty, with colors? And there's nothing that I hate more than copy pasting stuff. You have all these colors that you might want to use somewhere. And I thought, actually, it was not my idea. I saw this on another community, the processing community in open processing. They have something like this, and I really enjoy when communities bring ideas together that are random. But in this case, what this little script does is super magical. So we have colors from different websites. I made this in a way that you can pass a URL from different services. But in this case, from this demo, I'm going to use one palette from colors. I'm going to paste this. With this selected, I'm going to just press this, and boom, I have the colors here. This is wonderful. Now I have another problem with this. So what just happened? Let's walk through this once again. We can just learn a little bit about this. Don't try to learn how to code, learn how to fetch, learn how to transform data from one side to the other. The code is a bit messy, but I tried to structure it in a way that makes sense. The first thing is this function called create palette from URL, or create palette from URL. This is a function. Is using something called object literals. This is essentially the same thing as a if else or a switch, but it's more clear. Each of these things will try to interpret what type of URL format is this thing passing, and it's going to return the one that matches that, and is going to have a different strategy on how to parse the colors embedded in this type of URLs. For instance, this is from color designers, and you have this is the palette that I want. These are the colors here. So I can pass that and it will do the same. What happened is after I have the list, which is essentially an array, I can loop through the array, and from each of this colors that on my array, I'm going to take the color swatch, this element here, and I'm going to duplicate it. And then I'm going to just go into this element and I'm going to change the fill. And that's the only thing it does. It's very magical. And I added a little zoom which is Focus Animated, which is an API that is available in Figma. No one uses it. It's a lot of fun because it gives you that. Anyway, you understand the point. But the problem is that, I just save myself a couple of seconds by not needing to just copy and paste all of these colors. But the swatch itself, the component, it's still using something outdated. So if you feel a little bit overwhelmed about using code, Automator is this awesome tool from the recently acquired Diagram that allows you to do the same, but instead of you writing, it's just run. Instead of you writing code, you're just essentially moving kind of pieces, blocks, let's say. I'm gonna just click here. Here I have a couple of variables. This is the selection of components. I'm looking for a color, an element with the ID, looking for in the parent, look in the name, if the name is color, which is this thing, then I'm gonna go inside and I'm gonna say for all of these elements inside, let's try to recover the color value from it. And as soon as I have that, I store that inside of a variable. And at the end of all of that process, what I do is I just call fetch. And I'm using here the Color Pizza API from Meetup, which I need to give a shout out to because this is one of my internet heroes. He's not only the person behind projects like Pauline, but also he's an incredible designer, developer, creative, and has so many cool experiments. He's creating libraries to manipulate color. Yeah, he's an amazing dude, and he made this generously available for all of us. We can literally pass on a color, and it's going to retrieve a color name, which is magical because I don't need to think about doing that. For instance, if I say here false, and I'm going to select this, I'm going to write it again. Yeah, it didn't work. Why not? I was expecting a different name. Let's change this a bit. Almost royal. That's a solid name. So this is the thing that I wanted to say. Learn how to fetch, learn how to transform data, learn how to pipe that data into your workflow rather than to think about learning how to code. If you want to learn how to fetch info from the API directly with code and you feel comfortable doing it, you can start coding on something like Scripter, which is here, you can call it, I don't know why I'm doing this because I know this is not gonna work. Let me see if this, oh, it could work. Why I don't well, feel bad, but now you have this awesome animation. Scripter allows you to do that. There's another awesome plugin called Figlet from Gavin. Gavin is awesome also. Gavin is the person behind Table Creator, that plugin that saves me hours a day. If you don't know this plugin, I will show you a bit about it later. But Gavin was awarded a fund called Creator Fund by Figma, and that essentially allows him to fully dedicate time to build this engine. I haven't yet played a whole lot with it, so I'm not going to show much of it, but essentially I call it the spiritual successor of Scripter. So it's something that lives in between what Scripter is today and Automator. So it's he's attempting to build a community behind sharing snippets of code. So when you're thinking about building things with code, obviously you want to have this kind of a instant reward of integrating APIs into your work. But sometimes you want to start thinking about, I have an idea. I don't know how to write a plugin about this. Automator is really good for that. I really hope that there is a roadmap behind the acquisition of Diagram by Figma, because as you see, I really rock with this plugin. I love this little component, little plugin, because it just allows me to do a bunch of things that would be almost impossible. So I created this. It's called isometric. It's essentially the same kind of routines or programs or functions that you use to create that through a plugin, but it allows me to understand how to perform these operations directly into Figma without the need of using a plugin. So if I click here, I have this component turned in any kind of way. I can select anything and turn it into any kind of isometric view. This doesn't make any sense right now because probably need to present this in another way. So okay, let's get back to isometric in a second. So far, people, let me know if okay. So I'm gonna talk. I wanna keep working a bit with Automator for the following 2 sections, and then we're gonna start working with prompt engineering. But I want you to show you this first, because this is kind of a way that I had to make sense out of why it's important to learn how to fetch, right? So there are several APIs out there in the open that are super accessible for us to build things and without the need to use OpenAI, right? APIs allows us to query a dictionary and have like the reference of what that word means, or create other words. For instance, this automation, I think type words, and I separated the different API parameters into different automations. So I can have the word that I have selected and say like, show me the antonym of variables. This one is going to be tricky because I don't believe there is there is an antonym for that. So make words similar to variables. And so here I need to why this is this way. I should probably use the new wrap feature that I don't know how to use. If anyone knows how to use this, let me know. It will be really cool to know how this works. Oh yeah, it's insane. So what happened there is I queried this API with the word variables, and it returned a bunch of words that are related in some way. I'm not super happy with the result of that. So I'm gonna just pick another of these examples. In this case, I believe the word that I was using was screen. I'm gonna delete all of this. I'm gonna just pick that word and wanna do the same thing, similar. And it just gave me a bunch of words that are related. It's not incredibly impressive. For me, it is, because it just allows me to not only query for that particular word, show me words that rhyme with screen. Mean, green, being, machine, link. This is really cool because now with this, I can start writing stuff. You know what I mean? So this allows me to escape things that when I'm blocked and I need something, I just want to have access to that. And the way this works is very easy. You have this API. This is essentially in Automator. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to make this bigger, but the API is called DataMuse. I'm gonna just pop this into the screen, and I'm probably gonna share this automations. It's open source. The API has like using different sources to get that. And the API is very simple to understand. This is the endpoint, and you have some, this is kind of the table of different codes they use to change the type of output you can expect. So yeah, that's it. And this is like words that rhyme is related by rhyme. And look how easy, I'm gonna just open this again, an automator. Look how easy it is with your one with rhymes. So the way this works is, I pass a max variable, which essentially allows me to say, like, I want 4 variables. I want 4 words. I don't want a whole lot. So you can pass that variable. Here I say, from the current selection, if I have text, because you want to make your automation a little bit smart, get the word, which in this case, you're using the internal Figma API. But if you don't know, if you want to recover values from text, you need to use characters. That is the property. And then essentially, I create a wrapper so I can contain the other words that I want to populate. And then I ask this fetch thing, and I say, hey, dude, what I want is for you to get the word, and I want this amount, right? So Automator is going to go and get that for you, and it's going to return a result object, which is a JSON object already parsed for you. If it's successful, this should be a bit better. I should have probably an if else here to say, like, hey, if I have a result, to continue, if not, whatever. I have a for each, which is, I'm going to use a for each to store the output. And this allows me to store each item.word, and then to take the current selection, duplicate it, which is this word here, and pass the similar word, which I just stored from the API. And then I set selection to the last word, and I close the automation. And you just learn in that way how to ping an API. It's very simple, hopefully. And of course, I went crazy. And these are, this is essentially the same kind of environment. These are related words using data muse. And then I learned that the Urban Dictionary, that if you don't know, you didn't learn it from me, the Urban Dictionary is this very edgy place of the internet where people gather to evaluate the meaning of new words, words that we might not know, as in my case, full boomer. So I think I have one thing here is urban. Boom. Yeah, I just pressed that and it was incredibly fast, and it just got me this output. Another word for spitting game, how you are pulling on. Yeah, let's not use that word. Yeah, so you get the idea. I should probably, unfortunately, that's the part of this universe we're in, that the internet is not always super cool. Apologies for that. That was, oh my God. In the chat, can you give me another word? I don't know how to pull a chat because boomer. Thank you for laughing. Any a word for this? Weirdo. Thank you, Sam. Buzzing. That's weirdo. It will be interesting to build something that allows me to not do the mistake that I made a second ago. But yeah, weirdo. Someone with nothing better to do than write definitions on Urban Dictionary. Oh my goodness, I feel so seen this moment. Weirdo is a harsh word other than used to make fun of people. Okay. Let's go with bossy. I love it. This is a nice word. Delete this. I'm gonna just delete this. Awesome. Let's do it this way. And Tell me, Quincy, if hopefully I'm not butchering your name, if you're compliant with that definition. So we learned two things so far: that you need to learn how to fetch. It's very simple, very straightforward. Automator makes that even simpler than ever before. You don't need to care about anything else than just to know that the URL you're passing is right and the variables that you're passing are the one that the API is expecting, and to just know a little bit how to parse that output. It's not that hard, because it might lead you to the next thing. So the next part of this combo, it's going to be a bit much in terms of that. I'm going to try to show you stuff. You shouldn't not really care about the content itself. It's really more about the message behind. Hopefully that will make sense in a second. But prompt engineering is a real thing. I kind of hate that the hustle culture behind AI and GPT lately. But learning how to interact with this API is something that really pays off. And as you grow closer with the concepts, with the limits, with what you can do, with what you can't do, because unfortunately people don't know that the API has policies in place, and you can ask things, and the return, the output could be, it will never be insensitive stuff. It's very heavily moderated, but your prompt might be. So when you're just building prompts with a lot of data, sometimes there is a word there that you don't know, and you're going to have issues. And eventually, if you persist, you might have your account suspended. So be careful with that. Prompt engineering is a thing. Someone in the community made an asset that I really like. The link is going to be in the slides at the end. But essentially, he took the time to take all the prompts from this GitHub called Awesome Chat Prompts, ChatGPT prompts, which this essentially informs people back in probably January, I believe. I don't know when this happened, about one of the characteristics of ChatGPT 4, which is this notion of modeling, or essentially you have a way to shape or set context for the interaction you are about to just embark with ChatGPT. And this type of prompt setting really helps because, this thing was trained against pretty much a large portion of what we consider today reality. And you need to be as specific as possible, not only in terms of the topic, but in terms of the output you expect, which is something significant also to understand. So this is an asset that works on FigJam. I essentially copy and pasted it here. And it's not about this, but it's about a trick that you can use with this. The idea with this prompt types is that you are going to be able to open ChatGPT and you pass one of these things, and it already sets context and what you are expecting to do with it. So in this case, ChatGPT is going to act as a JavaScript console. So I can say, for instance, console log or console error. What? And you will print, whatever. It says Arduino. It wasn't super fun. Anyway, this is a notion that is important because this little prompt models help you set direction, intentionality with your interaction with ChatGPT. And I wrote a bunch of ideas about prompt engineering for people working with design systems. And most of these ideas were, I wrote them with the help of an assisted tool that was directly connected with OpenAI via Notion, and later via Airtable, and later via a plugin that someone made in the community on Figma. What I'm trying to say here is that you can interact with ChatGPT, or you can build your own integration. By doing so, you will have access to more memory or more tokens You will not be sending sensitive information that is being stored and used to train the next generation of ChatGPT if you care about that, about such a thing. So it's important for us to understand this dynamic between you understanding deeply what is why it's important to pay attention to this from models and this trend that is happening that every other tool out there is getting a little bit of ChatGPT magic sprinkle on. So for instance, you are working in this space, you are as a design system lead, you are coordinating what is going to be the life cycle of a component on your work, right? And when you're working with this type of prompt models, what you can say is, I want you to act as a design system component manager or software engineer lead working with a design system or leading a design system, and you're in charge of understanding the life cycle of these components, right? And then with that, you can start interacting with it and bouncing back and forth in terms of, what is the reality here in terms of what are the type of problems, challenges, opportunities that I have in front of me that I need to turn into systems, turn into, workflows, turn into processes, anything that informs the design process and also informs the designed culture that you're trying to define in your workplace. And same with every other part of our work. You can narrow it down until you are, in a way, what is happening there is you're creatively talking with yourself. That is something that you probably already experienced if you've been using ChatGPT for a minute, that what is happening there is it's not that you're relying a lot on the creative output of ChatGPT. You're steering your intuition with a new world of intuitionness, if that makes any kind of sense. Property renaming or auto-completing property values. None of the people get lost in the naming a component world. Let's talk about prop naming, bro. That is super hard. And you have this vast amount of components and design systems out there. You can really see like an X-ray about the maturity of a design system company by looking at the way they're naming the attributes on their functions, right, on their components and whatnot. So what I'm trying to say with this is this type of things are going to get even as focused and narrow and as specific as you want. But you want to build a process. So now I want to just switch quickly into something that I made with the same source in Airtable. This is essentially the same collection of data from GitHub, and this is a trick that I use that hopefully will make sense for you in a second. What you want is not only to start working creatively with building your own prompt models. What you want is to understand how to use this as a prompt itself. So here I took 3 different prompts, and you can start collecting this and building your own. And just to inform, this is what it's called shortcoding. I've completely forgot, it completely left my brain, but it's essentially is one technique with prompt engineering that is about just setting a little bit of context and letting ChatGPT to just create something without evaluation. So I'm sending 3 different prompt models, and then I asking generate a new prompt model for a designer creating design systems documentation. This is the only prompt this is the prompt. This is essentially the meat or the context. And this is actually the action, the intention, what I want you from to generate. And this is the output. I want you to act as a design systems documentarian. So that kind of makes sense. Documentarian, that's a word that I was not even expecting. Your task will be to assist in documenting and organizing the design system of our digital product. You'll be responsible. And this is essentially, boom, what I need, right? I want to copy this and when I open a new ChatGPT here, and I'm going to remove the quotes because now I want this to be actually the intention that I want, not context. And I want to separate this, and I want to say my first request is, can you help me generate a comprehensive guide for color palette, typography, and primary UI components? And it's going to start doing this for me. This is the part that we need to look like. Now it's a fluent, designer with knowledge about this. This doesn't prevent me from going further, but also it's not taking agency from my work. I'm not just making this work and switching tabs into the next task. This is where you need to be very responsible. You should not copy and paste this, all right? This is a recipe for you. This is a template. This is the bare bones of what is the expected output you want to produce. You don't want to use this because first, the minute you start looking at it closely, you will see something that is emerging everywhere, which is this thing is made in a way that is going to always follow a medium, or is going to just try to find that local suboptimal that refers to what is whatever normality, or it's going to be very mediocre, very basic in some kind of way. Don't just copy and paste this, because you will lose an opportunity to have agency and to have your creative capacity put in place. If you decide you have that possibility to just copy and paste this, know that what will happen is you're just adding one little boat to something that is going to replace you in the future. You want to use this as a reference, and you're gonna start working with this, but don't just copy and paste this please don't do that. I just wanted to say this because, again, with workflows and with ideas and with possibilities, there's always, we need to be aware of the price we're paying when we're doing these things. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And I just took one of this as a kind of as an idea for how to what we expect for this to work or operate. Hopefully that makes sense. Please let me know. For the next part, I can work on some other kind of or go deeper into that, but I just want to be mindful of the time and just keep moving. But as you can see, that was kind of the documentation part, or the editorial part of Design Systems. You can use these tools to generate code, or to generate user stories, or test your user stories, or create interview questions. But again, from the mindset of this is something that is allowing me to escape this kind of a blank page issue. But you can use it to write media queries. You can use it to create UML flows. You can use it to help you understand how an API works. Whatever, you name it. And even with the new technologies that are emerging, such as browsing, or this new thing that they released this week, code analyzer, I believe it's called, you can do more. This one is, I need to how are we with time? Because this one is going to take
feel
probably...
free just to continue. You can show everything you have. Don't worry about the time. So
this next one, so I was essentially trying to build a narrative that you can think about this as abording to a new topic completely clueless about it, and get output that seems reasonable, and you need to work with it. The more you move into scenarios where reality, when you're working with code, ChatGPT can hallucinate, can just produce something because it has knowledge that was cut off in 2021, that's not aware about what changed from 2021 to now. So it's going to try to fill the blanks. It's going to try to create the next token. the closer you move into programming, the harder it's going to be for you to rely on this. So you need to be more, it's as your journey moves into programming engineering, you will probably going to get more and more acquainted to understand if it's something doesn't make much sense, and how to essentially know the limits of one interaction with ChatGPT. And I will tell you more in a second. So this is a model for code generation for Figma. And this trick is something that I haven't seen out there, and it's probably the first time that I'm sharing it. I wasn't gatekeeping this. I was really trying to understand if this was something or it was just a fluke. But it gave me for the past couple months, it allowed me to experiment with Figma in ways that I was not able in the past, and allow me to do stuff that I wasn't able to even have the time to learn. So this prompt is separated in 3 parts, and at the last part of the prompt is going to be the intention, what I want. The context setting or the prompt model here is calling this act as Figma GPT, and calling this an expert plugin developer and a design system practitioner that knows the ins and outs of Figma as a platform. You can work here and do your own thing. This is essentially you trying to say this Figma GPT knows everything that you need to know about the Figma plugin API. And one trick to give Figma, actually that's not the screen I was looking for. One trick to give Figma more context is to actually use code itself. So Figma, need to open GitHub Figma. Let's go from here. Figma has, they're using TypeScript typings to update the community customers about essentially what you can do with the plugin API. This, if you want to know what are the features that Figma is going to be releasing, or the features that have released that don't have full compatibility with the API just yet, this is the document you need to read. No one reads TypeScript this way, only crazy people do that. But you can learn a lot from this. And I will show you a very horrible way, because I know there are better ways to do this, but I want to show you the crappiest way, which is the one that always works for me, where you can just take all of this and put it inside of your prompt. Here is a monstrous prompt. What you need to understand at this level, when you're we're operating here, is that ChatGPT has a token limit. You probably see it every time you copy like a full page of content or 4 pages of a book, thinking that you are going to have the ability to, have ChatGPT to take all of that token data. In Visual Studio Code, there is an extension that allows you to understand what are the amount of tokens on the current selection. If you're under 3,000 tokens, your prompt is good to go. What you need to understand is that the token limit is the memory of the application itself. What it means is this memory erases, starts to disappear the minute that the output that GPT is producing and your own follow-up prompts or interactions, those are tokens that are accounted for that memory limit. So when you start working with this at this level and building this type of thing, what will happen is you need to be aware when you're noticing hallucinations that what just happened there is GPT just lost track of the original prompt. Okay, so I'm going to show you a quick demo of this. And just to recap this, because maybe I skipped that part, what I did here is I extracted all the typings, interfaces, functions, and I essentially slapped them in between these parts. The 146 interface objects, 66 types, and 203 possible functions you could use. by doing that and combining those two things, what I'm able to do now is I'm going to paste this, and now I can essentially have an entry point for me to start interacting with the Figma API in a different way. So I want to say my first question to you is to help me select component instances on a page. This code, it's code that I can copy paste on Scripter and have something, which is insane. So now below here is essentially telling me you need to have a plugin environment. I need a component key. I need a bunch of things. I'm gonna just copy this, and I'm gonna open Scripter. You can build kind of your own, plugin, GPT, whatever API, and do it in your own way. I didn't test this for the love of God. Believe me, if this doesn't work, it's because I didn't test this. I tried this before in the past, but I don't know if it's going to work. So what I need is a component key. And this is something that it's kind of hard to understand, because in libraries, in Figma, you can have local components and global components. What I need is a local component for this demo, and I have these two titles here. I'm going to use master, and I'm going to say create component from object. Oh shoot, I'm on a different account. I feel terrible about that. Sorry, shouldn't see that. But anyway, so I'm gonna create component. We can use this. Create component from layer. This is going to create this component. I'm going to move away. Obviously, this is a community-driven plugin, so I was not expecting for this to work. It didn't work the way I was expecting, but it does the thing that I need. Obviously, we're kind of doing this in reverse order because I already know where the components are. But what I want to know is what is the ID of this component, and this is the key. When I'm using debugger from diagram, and I'm going to just open Scripter once again. Sorry, this is taking a minute, but it's the order, and hopefully this should work. Yeah, it worked. It just selected this too. So let's go crazy so we can just really play with this. I'm going to duplicate this very randomly, very randomly. I'm going to make a mess. Just duplicate this a bunch of times. Now we have a ton of versions of this. This is like, some like this thing just went crazy. I have a bunch, and they're like everywhere. It's not that they're inside of my slides. It's a mess, right? It's like my file any Friday. I press this. I have all of them selected. I can delete them. And that's it. That code didn't exist a minute ago, and I'm able to produce code without even the need to read the documentation, because this thing is so smart that it can just piece together between the context, what it already knows, and the setting that I gave them. It just stick to this in a way that is almost, makes sense. We can go further in this and build other stuff. The problem is by that time you probably need to, in the same way that I was telling you earlier, don't just use this, don't just copy paste. When things get interesting is when you're going to start paying attention to, oh, let's actually read the documentation, right? Or let's actually go into GitHub and search for Figma plugins. We have a generous community building awesome plugins for, and even Figma has plugins. You can use this to go into any of these components. And you can just have a chat with the code, you know what I mean? So in this context, what I will do is I'm going to just copy paste this, and I'm going to say, walk me, or just now let's something more. Let's do please walk me through this code, what it does. Boom. And in the same way that these things can produce code, this thing can help you understand someone else's code. And through those two building blocks of prompt engineering, you just had access to a ton of possibilities, ton of things that you can do. Sometimes those things are really hard to make, but you can make them. This is something that I've been building this since probably the first demo that I did with integrating the Figma API and Framer Classic. We're talking like 4 or 5 years in the past. I have this belief that the Figma document API is the most powerful visual kernel of the web. Point blank. What does that mean? What do you mean with that? Why? Well, what I mean is that you can copy this link. If you don't know how to use an API, you can go. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just. You can go into something like Observable. Observable is this product made by the creator of D3. You can type here Figma API. Someone from Observable made a starter kit that is incredibly versatile to help you understand what the Figma API can do for you. So in this case, this person made this document available. You're just pasting your API key. This is not something you should do. Please don't mess with that API. But these are functions that you can use on your own code, wherever you're using, to interact with the Figma API. Some of these utilities are very simple to copy and paste. The only thing that this needs, if you're going to use it on your environment, is you need to add const, and that's the only thing you need. Observable is this open notebook type of programming interface that allows you to connect everything. And this is reference forward, means that you don't need to add the code in any kind of structured place. Whatever you added is part of the execution loop, and every part of the code is aware of the next thing. It's very smart, very, very, this is one of the most creative places on the web today. I use it because this allows me to play with the API. So I just pasted this. I'm gonna paste this. I'm gonna say, hello, horrible. And I'm gonna paste, let's copy and paste this properly. This is going to give me an image, is this. And I can add this image to a Three.js application. It says designer and hello. I'm learning 3D as I started probably saying that. This has been a journey that is incredibly rewarding for me, because this has allowed me to connect the things. So what I do is I try to connect things. That's my work. My thing in the world is, shit needs to be connected. And even in today's world with Figma variables and tokens and whatnot, all the apps out there are completely disconnected. There's no way, there's no simple way to connect color tokens from Figma to Squarespace. There's no way to connect colored tokens, Figma variables, from Figma to Canva, to Framer, to Photoshop, to Illustrator. Nothing works. It doesn't work because we know how the world works. So I need you. I can't, make that integration. I don't have the time. Sometimes, like yesterday, I was working on Squarespace, and there is no way, and it's mind-bending that we have all of these things and nothing is connected. So you can do that type of thing. This is the same thing as I'm learning how to manipulate geometry and really do stuff that I haven't seen on the web. It's not that no one did it, but I haven't seen this type of weird stuff. The Figma API really is incredibly powerful. I think this is the last demo. The next one, I lost my tab. Yeah, so this is something that I hopefully will be ready in the next month. In the past, someone made code available, open source, that allows anyone to make this thing. Unfortunately, that code was got a little bit outdated. But what is happening here is incredible. Not because I did it, but because it's really something really remarkable in terms of what the Figma API can produce. These 3D objects are SVG objects coming from Figma. The way this works, this probably will not work, but I need to give it a shot. This is part. Sorry, you're looking at the kitchen sink, probably. No one. I completely lost. Where is it? No. I'm looking here, open source contributions. Sorry, I'm looking for one. Yeah, completely. Where is this? Actually, yeah, no.
Your time, Davo. The chat is saying that they're happy to look at your kitchen sink. Even your files was quite inspiring. So take your time to find what you need to find.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking for a. Actually, it changes, and I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna blame Figma for that. It should be probably shape spectrum. That's what I was looking for. So I made this last year for last year's presentation on automation, and I really love this. Not shape spectrum. Why you're taking so? So shape spectrum is this project that someone made. It's collection of really creative code-generated symbols. There is a system behind this. There is a lot of iteration. This is a very creative and organized way to use creative coding. To use Python. Processing. And this person took the time to just made symbols that have like an internal language or an internal thing. And I took it upon myself to build a design system out of this, because I just don't know why I cannot open it. This is something that is super weird. She's a section design system. I'm bombing. I don't know why. Well, this is the file, hopefully. Yeah. So what is happening here is I just make some decisions and turn this into a component, a system of components that is not incredibly intuitive, but that was the challenge. How do you automate generating how do you automate componentizing something that in a way implicitly has a lot of structure, but you need to define the internal properties so you can realize that this is a variant, or you can call it a step. And yeah, this allows me to in the past to make slides that are really pretty, or I didn't really need to think about how to make a system to combine these things and have something out of it. This is not the file I'm looking for actually, but whatever. Actually, there is a way. If I just ping the shape link. Yeah, no, it's gonna take me a minute. I wanted to really show this because this is super cool. Well, I don't know. Bottom line is, just let's give me one more second, because maybe it's here. This is why this is not finished, obviously. Meanwhile, you can ask questions. I will try to answer them. There's a state here somewhere. I'm setting. It's already it's passing. It should be here, but I don't know why I'm not being able to read the URL. Because it's not here. This is essentially the code I've been writing. What is this one? Please tell me, is this one? I'm not really sure. Actually, you need to talk until. I should probably have this part documented as, well, we live and learn. Where is it? Where are you, my dude? You're killing me. There's no other types. Well, probably can use this. Well, anyway, this is a failed demo in this part. Sorry on my end.
You're doing great. Don't worry, Davo.
Yeah.
I remember I was trying to demo Automator on my talk at the conference too, and the output just was like not appearing on the canvas that I could see either. So it happened.
Yeah, it was. I was trying to see where. I don't know exactly where I left that. I made another demo about this. I was not really wanted to present this part, but it went out of the way because I believe it kind of painted a picture on how to essentially integrate, not only Figma as an asset that is integrated with your work, with your creative work out there, not necessarily exporting. This is more like integrating. You can think about this as PNGs. You can think about this as SVGs. The bottom line is what you are able to do with this technology is, by fetching and using the current state of 3JS or reactive fiber, which is in this case, if I have the data coming, I'm going to be able to say like, hey, take this SVG and extrude it, make it an actual, 3D polygon that you can see, that you can color, that you can affect by lighting. And obviously now it's installing again. So this was working a second ago. One of the things that I can say is that the Figma API is not incredibly fast. This is not the hardest thing, but it's something that, so for instance, here has a little bevel on the borders. This allows me to have different artifacts in the border of the elements. Totally something that you can control here. And as you can see now, this is a more rigid shape. It's still an SVG though, but you have a lot of creative power, and it's very automatic. I'm really waiting for someone to reply to a DM that I sent, because I don't feel super confident in sharing something without his permission. He did not reply. I will not do it. But you probably read something on my Twitter, and we're probably close with that. I want to just let's not do that. Someone is making a 3D rendering for Figma, a 3D rendering engine for Figma. That's all I want to say. I asked them earlier because they gave me access to the plugin this morning, and I tried it. It's amazing. But I asked him, hey, do you want me to plug that? And he's in China, so he's probably sleeping now. But anyway, last part, and probably I want to just spend a little bit on this. But so far, if you have questions about some of the, where these things are leading towards, hopefully by the end of this month, I will be able to finalize something that I've been working for a whole lot of time, which is essentially I want to write a newsletter for creative people using AI. And all of these things are the assets that I'm using to make that process easier and simpler. Through that journey, I'm essentially embarking in testing tools, learning what are the differences between these tools, building tutorials and writing content that is meaningful, and that helps you navigate this moment with AI. We have this incredible FOMO of things that are happening that are really cool, but at the end of the day, it's not about the tools. It's not about you feeling left out. It's about you taking your own time, your own. It's your own adventure, So if you feel overwhelmed, it's completely normal. You're not missing out. The world is moving incredibly fast. Things are happening at an incredible pace. In the presentation I gave last month, I was saying that in April, May, June, about 200 new AI applications were released per week. 200 apps powered by AI per week. Number is slowing down a bit because it's like something that it will happen. But regardless, you're not missing out. It's like a lot of things are happening, and I feel like there are a lot of newsletters. The format is experimental. I don't care about, like you said, newsletter. What I really care about is just putting something out there that is meaningful and help people spark that curiosity and intentionality to try new things. Hopefully that makes sense. I need to open the other Figma. So someone made, if you want to start, there are many ways you can start with Figma variables. It's a whole journey. What I will say before getting anything here, or if you want to take something out of this is very experimental. I think Figma is being a bit cheeky, or I don't know exactly what's the take here, but calling this a beta is a stretch. I'm not hating. I love what they're doing. I love the direction. They're very receptive. They're essentially listening in the community. This is great. But the problem is we went from nothing to something that is a lot, but unfortunately it's not fully finished. I know how hard it must be to not be able to ship the whole vision they have, but they really wanted to ship something. So they make compromises, and I understand that. What I wanted to say with this is, don't feel weird if you don't want to, if you feel that you don't understand fully what is happening with this Figma variables, if it's hard to grok, if it's a lot. They added a ton of dimensions to the Figma development experience, if you want to say it, because we are, as designers, we are developers. We are essentially constructing symbols through UI and user experience that in a way is a developer experience. With variables, we have now several Figmas. We have systems for systems for systems, so it's really complex. If you want to have a taste on how incredible this is. The plugin from Microsoft about variables is one of these. It's open source, number one, which is something that if you feel compelled to try. Variables. Actually, let's go to. This is why I really wanted a different experience for searching. I'm looking for Microsoft. Where are you? Actually, let's see. I think it's here. So yes, I believe this is the file that I'm looking for. Yes, this is the plugin. This plugin is not a plugin. This is a system. This is so incredibly complex, and like this is the most comprehensive little tool out there. So when you have access to, when you run an instance of this, or if you run the published version, I need first, let's open GitHub desktop. This is my companion. I'm looking for, actually, I think I downloaded it. Sorry, I'm not being funny. Imports, there's a demo folder here. So let me backtrack a little bit. We are in Microsoft GitHub owned by Microsoft. You're in the Figma variables import plugin that is open source. Instructions, you can read them. I read them. There's a demo folder with a bunch of JSON files. Obviously, JSON, it's my love language. I pasted this here. And now, obviously, this is a work in progress plugin. It doesn't have any celebratory, any prompt message at the end like, hey, you just imported like a whole lot of variables and modes and types, and this is comprehensive as you can imagine. And feel free to invest the rest of your 2023 with this, because this one is insane. That is one end of this part. The other is the work of folks like you on their side of this call, who are essentially working in the community, not as Microsoft, but as somebody. This is Radix UI Kit. Probably today, maybe I'm mistaken, one of the most comprehensive UI kits with variables in the community. This is by this person, Victor. We'll reach out to you later to give you a shout out. Again, he says that this is an official thing. He's been working for quite a minute on this. As you can see, it's a very comprehensive design system, and it's all powered by variables. How do you know? Well, in variables, one trick that every person is pulling is switching themes. Boom. This works per page, so you can override these things. All the tricks, and I'm not here to be like a party, whatever. You know what I mean? Don't really care about that, but it's incredibly powerful to see this type of thing. Something that is really well thought out is someone that took the time to build the bridge, fill the gaps, learn the documentation from Radix UI, which is likely, this is my opinion, Radix UI is one of the most awesome looking design systems that are out there, with a ton of technology behind that is incredible. So he essentially took time to recreate all these components. Obviously, he has been working on that for quite a bit, obviously, but right out of the release of Figma variables, he managed to get this impressive demo. And what I'm trying to tell you with this is you have an extreme case like Microsoft releasing this monstrosity of a plugin from which you can redo all of this thing with your hand. But there are also other plugins open source that you can use to learn how to use this. So for this last part, we're not going to talk about this part of creating variables through ChatGPT, because believe me, it's possible, but I will probably need like a 4-hour thing to run you through this. But what I want you to leave you with is this. One of the parts that are really hard when we are building this design systems is to connect the awesome work we made on building very comprehensive, visually gorgeous looking component library. And sometimes this part is not super great. This says accordion, vertically stacked set of interactive headings that each reveal an associated section content. So take a step back and let's use this prompt model here. And I'm gonna just wanna say, actually, this is, before I go any further, this is GPT-5 by Pavel Aptev, which is one of my favorite human beings. This was, I don't know why this never works, but well, where are you? This man, I interviewed him for last year's conference because I'm always a fan of developers building stuff and sharing this. The code for this, how can I sort this? Oh man, I hate this interface. GPT-5 here. This is the plugin. The plugin is open source. You can essentially make your own copy, build your own version, take the tricks that I showed you earlier, and build a different version of this plugin for just you to do whatever you want. It's very comprehensive in that regard. So what I'm going to do is quickly, just to close this, because obviously it's a long day for everybody, is I want to give the prompt, the model, the context, and then I want to say my first question, help me generate a better description for this accordion component. And I'm going to paste this here. And I'm going to press this. And boom. There's a bunch of things in the UI. And now, obviously, I can go back and I can start playing with the temperature of the prompt. And I can say, you know what, I just need you to be very, very conscious about the output. And we say, please wait. And it's giving you different iterations. And this is kind of a one way you can think about connecting these parts. Hopefully, so far it made sense what I showed you. What I want you to take away out of this part is it's absolutely possible to generate JSON-like output. I tried it. What is really hard is to get to this level. You will not see for a minute plugins that allows you to fully generate or understand a design system, or even tokens itself, like a dictionary of design tokens, and transform them into variables. It takes a lot of effort, but there are parts of this process that you can start filling the gaps to, and building an intuition on how to use it. And even you can build your own dictionaries based on descriptions for other components and whatnot. Hopefully you get the idea. What I encourage you to do first and foremost, that I believe hopefully is the driving part of this conversation, is I want you to learn how to fetch, okay? Please, you will have so much fun the minute you build your first integration between a very obscure side of the web with your workflow, things that are really hard for you to copy paste. That will allow you to at some point be more ambitious and just ping the technologies that companies are using to build tools. If you want to get into AI and build your own thing, and you shouldn't care about like just getting rich and whatever, but really take your stab at the dreams you had for a long time that you are essentially not pursuing because, again, no one had time, or it's really hard to code, or it's not that I'm telling you stop making excuses. I hate that type of language, but you should really take a step back and make some conscious decisions about things that you want to see in the world, in terms of, I don't think this is correct, or I think we should do more of this. You probably are in a very privileged position to be able to be with work and have an internet connectivity and have the ability to speak in a language that everybody speaks to, and you're a designer and maybe you're coding. Dude, if you list all of the things you're privileged for, you should be just getting out of your attitude and start just your journey in whatever aspect you want to do, in whatever terms. Just start doing it. Just take the steps that you need to take to learn how to, connect the parts with whatever thing you want to see in the world. It's possible. The only thing you need is time and a conscious mind. Just be intentional about it. You're gonna be fine. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Darryl, for this incredible design AI jam. Really, really cool. So many cool examples. I just want to stay up all night and play with all the stuff you showed and check out all the resources. Please give Darryl a huge round of applause in the chat and with the emojis. It's a lot of work to put together all these examples and resources. Thank you so much, Darryl, again for sharing all your incredible ideas and work with the community. That's the spirit.
Thank you so much. Hopefully, I will stop just wasting time on trying to perfect something that it'll never be perfect. But again, it's part of the journey to pursue things in any kind of way. For this designer in the loop thing, I've been working like crazy trying to build like a not only branding, it's more like a metaphor for how we got ourselves in this situation, and of feeling inadequate, unfinished, or not ready, or not understanding, or this is super like hard. I feel like it's a loop, and I wanted to start building again, visual metaphors that make people aware that, dude, you're perfect. Whatever you are, whatever you're doing, just try to understand that whatever you do, it's okay. You are the designer in the loop. This metaphor comes from a concept in machine learning that it's called human in the loop, which is this kind of a security control protocol, metaphor of we're building systems that are heavily automated, incredibly smart, and we are taking the human out of the equation. When something like that happens, a lot of things that can go wrong will go wrong, from the shadow of AI becoming sentient, which is unlikely but possible, to essentially algorithms making decisions for humans, which is not only likely, but it's already happening. We need to have control, and we need to educate ourselves and the next generation. So yeah, I'm building this metaphors that are taking me a lot of time, but because when you're in this world of not feeling adequate, sometimes you really you need to go lengths to say like, hey, I understand this little part, let me build something for the next ones. And again, I'm not doing this on my own. I'm being inspired by a whole lot of people. by this community, by you, Sil, Sam as well. Awesome humans that are essentially donating their time to just build this this community to commonly share what we know, where we are, and openly discuss the things that we don't really know about, right?
Yes, it was the perfect jam. I mean, that's the kind of spirit of Into Design Systems, having people from the awesome people from the community sharing their work, their concepts, their ideas. So yeah, incredible job. I really loved your presentation and all the resources and ideas you shared today again. Really, really cool. I cannot wait to see Designer in the Loop launching. What's the plan?
Hopefully soon. It's just a newsletter every 2 weeks with hopefully one interview to a profile, someone that is from not a community that is often represented in the world, that is working with technology. Very mindful tutorial to teach you something that will unlock possibilities for you. And essentially, I'm trying to make heads or tails about how to test products. You know, there are incredible products out there. The problem is that we're building products with AI, we're reinventing the wheel, we're not integrating, and some ideas are really good. Like some things that are emerging are incredibly good. But again, we need to be critical, and we need to be very vocal about the things that are not working, you know, things that we're doing that we should not be doing. When we see content that is being generated by a prompt, we need to ask the services that are providing that, you know, hey, walk me through how you build that model. Help me understand what was the process to create that knowledge. Because at some point we are responsible for the usage, and if we're essentially building on top of something that was created by another creator, we're making that a service to everybody, and also, and more importantly, we're just putting a bucket on, we're putting a bat on something that is going to, in a way, replace us in the future. So it's not that I want to be incredibly adversarial about this, but we need more, you know, active learning and you know, guided experiences and opinions in terms of, you know, hey, you know what, this is a great idea, this is a shitty idea, and this is why I think about this way, right?
Yeah, what do you think about Dylan Field's tweet recently?
Oh man, that was so
AI security is woke or something like that.
No, it was AI safety is the new
AI
woke.
safety, yeah.
That is so, I didn't know even how to, I felt really bad about Diagram with that. Because they're front and center right there. And I felt like it was one of these moments that, you know, it's terrible. You know, this whole world of VCs and CEOs that have more power than they should have or whatever. But that's a tweet that no one needed to read. If that is your like 2 a.m. drunk tweet, you should probably delete it and own it, because that was some stupid stuff to say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for imagine being Diagram. Just it's like, come on, man, what? Why? And also, yeah, they got, so Figma and Adobe have a weird relationship. It feels like Adobe is like, you know, this prince in the desert that has a lot of money, and they are just building a new city in the middle of the desert, trying to paint the picture that this is the city of the future. Well, everybody knows where that money is coming from, the atrocities that are being committed in this place. So there's no ethical foundation for whatever. The relationship between Adobe and Figma is very weird, because in the acquisition of Diagram, the most amazing little shop for AI design tools, So like now that there's a vacuum now, I need the next diagram because diagram now belongs to Figma. What I feel very weird about is that the month before, Adobe and Google worked in partnership to build the next foundation of API and services for ML workflows that Adobe calls Firefly. Firefly powers this awesome new technology that everyone is incredibly hyped about. Photoshop, new tools are happening on Illustrator, and there is a whole, maybe I can share that really quickly because this
Yeah, you showed me. That's really cool. Where you can add elements to images and this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
yeah,
they have
cool.
an open, space for people to try picture Dolly or any of these tools that are out there to generate things. This is essentially Adobe flexing on their pipeline to build stuff. They're trying to generate a community, obviously, because it's Adobe. It's kind of hard for them to just have a whole momentum on that. But all of this technology that today is being used by the Creative Suite inside of Adobe in Photoshop and Illustrator as the first betas is now powering technology on the Google Pixel phone. But the way I see it is you have Figma, which is where every designer is working on. You paid a lot of money for that, and Figma is acquiring diagram. So if I don't see the next iteration of a product built by the diagram team with Firefly, that is a weird signal. It took me a lot of time, to come to that conclusion, like in this right this minute. Hopefully it makes sense, but this is something that they have a really good product. This is incredibly powerful, efficient at scale. They are working on building ethical foundations on the usage of this. So if you generate something, you get a little watermark that says, if you want to share this, you need to just use that watermark that says it was produced with Firefly. They're trying to come with not protocols, but systems to digitally fingerprint the asset. So there is traceability behind what was the prompt and whatnot. Really cool stuff. And they have the whole Figma community. What I'm trying to say here is I applied to get access to this API to play with it. The whole process internally at Adobe is not super, straightforward. But on the other hand, Canva already released 2 products with AI. Canva AI tools. They have at least 2 or 3. This is probably the 4th that they released. So this is, in this case, you drag to create stuff and images. This is what I call Magic Writer, which is essentially another glorified OpenAI experience where you are not starting from scratch. You just start prompting, and you will have your content as close as to your design as possible. And again, this is other work related to contextually having ways to manipulate your design within the design tool, which is really cool. What I feel weirded out is all of these things that we're doing is, through the effort of people from the community integrating OpenAI or integrating, DALL-E or all of these technologies. It's taking a whole minute for Figma and Adobe to give us this. What I'm saying is this demo of GPT, this is cool, but why this is a plugin and it's not here in the text? Why it's taking so long? Is it because it's hard to scale? Is it because it costs a lot of money to do this at the scale of Figma? I understand these things. What I'm very weirded out is that I have AI safety is the next woke tweet from Dylan instead of a roadmap. I want a roadmap. I want to have a little bit of a hint on what things are ahead, Because if not, I'm paying for OpenAI in Airtable, in Notion, in every other tool that is using OpenAI, and then I'm copy and pasting those things. And that is the problem when we see products chasing or just taking a different route, and our workflows are broken, and I need to copy paste, and then I forgot what was the prompt, and I forgot if I did wrote it or an AI wrote it. So again,
Yes.
not an awesome world that it was not integrated before, and now is broken, unintegrated, but incredibly smart. So kind of a
Yeah. From what I know, Penpot is also working on some cool AI stuff, and they just announced a collaboration with Token Studios. So I'm really excited to see what the future will look like with Penpot. So currently, if I needed to bet money, I would go with Penpot.
I need to take a, I really need to take a hint or essentially start building stuff with it, because they're, again, when Adobe was acquired, which is the same image that I have when Diagram was acquired, now there is a space for a tool that is being built in the open that has very clear and very intentional leadership, trying to build something in the open, trying to work with community members that are building companies on, such as Token Studio, to build partnerships early on. So, I cannot say nothing more than that they're just doing all the right things, and we should support them.
Yes, open source, I think, is the future, and they are using, or with the help of the community, they are building their future, their features and their products. So yeah, really excited about that. We have two questions if you still have time. Is it possible to share the design system prompts you showed, or will you? Can you just, I don't know, paste it in the board or screenshot or?
Let me do just one thing here. Can you let's do two things. What's the Miro link is here?
Yeah, I will share.
I'm gonna share my
in the chat
resources. This is the prompt one. This is just a trick to create new things. The asset from Figma is prompts.
So you pasted, where is it?
It's here in resources. I don't know where, maybe there is another place.
Yeah. No, that's fine. No. Is it this one?
It's this one, yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Actually, sorry. It's meant to paste something else.
Do you think prompt engineering will be a job or something? I think it's very interesting.
Oh shit! Why this is not damn? Sorry.
No worries.
I don't know how
yeah,
to.
Miro
I don't know
has
how to
some
use
problems with pasting links recently. I don't know why.
What is this? This is Figma. No.
It's okay. You can also.
I don't know how to undo. I don't know how to undo this. I'm sorry. I broke your.
Yeah, no worries.
No.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna delete this. We can fix it later.
Yeah, we can fix it later.
Where are you, Sil? Where are you?
I'm here in resources. In resources.
Here. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I want to try to paste this one. This I feel very boomer. Boomery. So this is the awesome ChatGPT prompts that were parsed from GitHub into a FigJam, which make them very easy to use. And I want to add the GitHub too. Was there any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, one was if you can share the prompts, please, and the other one was as someone who doesn't code, Automator is pretty confusing to try and learn. I've used other scripts from the Automator community, but have no idea how to create my own. Where would I go to try to understand the code concept so I can build my own scripts in Automator to use it in my workflow?
That's a good question. So diagram on, if you already use this, let me know and I will shut up.
Do you want to share
diagram?
something?
Yeah, let me share this.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Yeah. Oh, come on, Zoom. Yeah, okay.
So there is a welcome to Automator here in Figma. This file walks you through all the things you need to know about how to use Automator. It's
Where can people find it? In the Figma community?
It's in the Figma community. I'm linking this here.
Oh, okay. And what's the programming language? Is it JavaScript or is it even worse?
So
I mean, you told people to learn how to fetch instead of how to code.
It's fetch works, so the way Automator works is not even a meta language. They're essentially, the automations are just JSON, JSON files. They map a significant part of the Figma plugin API into these low-level building blocks. What I would love to see, I completely understand the sentiment of not being incredibly intuitive on how to use it. I wrote, there is a Discord as well, not incredibly active these days because I'm hoping that diagram sends some signals in the following weeks, months about what's ahead for them, because they went, beating radio silence into what's next for them. I would love to know more about if what is the next step for Automator, but the way it works today is it's powerful, but it's not intuitive. I completely understand the sentiment. It should have more capabilities to copy and paste within the automation. And one thing that I wanted to do, this ML. Sorry, I'll look for it in a minute. But I was hoping that the next step for Automator will not be that interface, will be more node-like, where essentially you have building blocks and you drag them into some sort of a tree that things that are connected, and you can see internally how things happen instead of being limited by the plugin interface. I should hope that if there is any traction of keep iterating on Automator, that it will transform into something like this. Because I will say that this might be kind of the next evolution for that tool, that type of tool. I was thinking about the project that Emil Whitlam, which is an engineer, designer and engineer that it's a really good friend. He spent quite a bit of time building this. Is essentially a UI to write shaders using this type of nodes. I think that the next step for Automator will be an experience like this, where you can understand the building blocks and how they connect and affect, and you get at the end an output. That output might be, actual, UI being changed in your Figma experience, or something more complex, like manipulating variables and whatnot. This is not impossible to build. I cannot build something like this because I will need to have access to all the mappings that the diagram team built, which is essentially what I was showing you earlier in this massive prompt. That was showing you this huge prompt What Automator
Yeah.
is at the very end is a visual or a map of all of this building blocks into this thing. You know, each element represent one of these actions, right? So in that way, what they did is you have the power of building plugins without code. You know, it's powerful. I made a whole lot of different workflows with it, but in my experience working with designers on my team, again, they had the same experience as this friend just shared. You know, it's not really accessible in that way. You see how things work with other automations, not super simple to understand how something works, right? So it's possible. You will need more iteration, more attention, more work. I sure hope that Darren team will have ways to send strong signals on, you know, hey, we'll keep iterating, we'll keep working on Automator, or we're working on something more. But yeah, I really hope that there is enough traction for them to not kill this project. At this time, it's a bit uncertain about what is the direction of Automator.
Yes, I have the same feeling. I think they're working on Genius. Yeah, there are other products.
I didn't demo Genius a whole lot. I had a lot of other stuff to show with that, but this is Figlet, this plugin that was developed by this person that I was chatting earlier, Gavin. Figlet is essentially trying to build a simpler version of what a scripter is, which is essentially what you're looking at is an environment to write code, and it's going to be executed locally as a plugin. So you don't need to build all the tooling and foundation you need to have a plugin running. And if you want to share that plugin, you need to go through a process of review that and publish it. This is almost a shorthand into having access to that. It's very powerful. I didn't have a whole lot of time to play with it. It adds, you know, as soon as you create one of this Figlets, you will have access to code. So I can literally copy paste the code that I generated earlier and run it here. And if you want to have UI, you can open this HTML and you can create UI from which you can provide more control and have like a plugin-like experience. So it's very powerful. Gavin just released this, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. So it's pretty recent. But one thing you can see is, you know, visually really follows a bit closely the experience of Automator when you have your own, in this case, automations, and in this case, your Figlets or scripts. You have a place for things that you can share in the community, or you can copy and use, and you make this maybe in a way an opportunity that Automator had that didn't took to build. They decided to share all of this with a Figma document. What Figlet did is, you know, just put it inside of the plugin. I'm excited about this project. I didn't have a whole lot of time to essentially move these 100, but yeah, almost 100 scripts that I have on Scripter that I've been building for a couple of years into put in here. The main thing is the Scripter runs both TypeScript or JavaScript or ES6. All the scripts that I made are in TypeScript, so I cannot copy and paste that code here, and I need to transpile them. And that essentially was the reason that prevented me to move all of that and make demos with that tool. But yeah, it's super powerful, super powerful. I'm very excited about Gavin working on this space, because it's literally one person that has been building some of the most workflow-oriented plugins in the community, from Table Creator to plugins to just recreate Figma nodes via code. So it's called Figma Decoder. It's essentially you run the plugin with a part of your design selected, and what you get is what the Figma API sees. So instead of looking at visual representation, you are looking at the code foundations you need, and it's very powerful. So
Cool. Nice. How do you find out about all of these new projects and stuff? Is it on Twitter or do you have any other resource?
Mostly Twitter, but yeah, that's a great question, Sel, because I wish it should, we used to have, so Figma has different community areas from Discord that I know how long or how much people are there to a bunch of discourse forums, or at least one. We used to have a Slack channel called Figma API, I believe. It was closed recently. So now I think everything gravitates around the activity within the Figma community page inside Figma or Twitter, which is not great because we are resourcing to have, so that's a space that, into design systems can definitely take part and just, definitely have ways to build momentum and create attention to.
Yes. Also, you have mentioned that there are 200 AI apps being released every week. So how, as a designer or somebody interested into AI, how do I find out which tools I should test or give a try? Because it's a lot. Is there any, I don't know, page with recommendations or something like that?
Yeah, this page, Featurepedia, and there is another one. I will share it. Yeah, this has been growing like crazy. When I presented last month, they had
at our
about
conference.
200,000, and now they had 350. So they grew dramatically in the past month. As you can see, it's what they are building is probably they are replacing Product Hunt. Product Hunt has like a category about AI powered tools and whatnot. This is a whole Product Hunt for AI tools.
Wow.
Again, there are parts on this that I don't really like about this and other tools. One of them is that in order to submit your tool to be published here, there is a kind of weird, is you're buying a spot. It's not, again, feels super hacky. Feels like I don't know. I cannot say nothing against the will to make a buck with this. The main issue that I feel with this is, you should probably be at this level. You should have probably any kind of tiers and open a little bit more to the community to curate, rather than just this is curation by paying to get here. And because there is like nobody else doing this, is like the cheapest $200 you can have to be part of this. It feels like it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but when you are looking at where you're sitting next to without doing much to just pay to be here, what I'm trying to say here is that at some point it should be. This is why I was trying to say earlier that we need more designers. We need more people thinking about this with a critical eye, because again, I'm not against people making money. What I'm feeling strongly about is that when this is kind of oriented to the community and the community has no say but just to rate, it's like, it's how much of a community is that. And they also, the data is not available, obviously, which is not great because people will love to have access to this to understand about trends and whatnot. That is another part that if you want to monetize, you could. And in all honesty, you need to pay for those data servers. But obviously this feels like an operation of one or two people that are incredibly stressed these days. And I completely understand that. But it's interesting. I also notice there are agencies. I don't have it in the top of my head, but I will add it to the Miro board. There are a couple of agencies, one in Europe, that are doing AI workflow testing. I will look for it and I will send it later. But essentially, that is one of the things that I wrote about it, and I try to add as much as I was inspired by this idea. I'm not trying to say like I thought about that, but I really like the way they essentially are doing like an X-ray on all these AI tools oriented to designers or creative people by dissecting how much of compatibility is with your workflow. If you are a videographer, or if you're essentially working with 3D or designing UI or products, they're essentially taking a little bit of a critical eye into how much the tool can connect with your world, rather than just being fascinated by the tool itself, which I really appreciate, because that is the type of effort that we need. When we're looking at this kind of fire hose moment of data coming our way, we want advice. We want, and to have people dedicated to do that is very, very inspiring. So I do hope that I can do my best on this, and hopefully in the following days, months, as soon as I just feel comfortable with all the what I want to say is it's hard to put something out there that is you when you're doing it on like your 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. But I know it's important, so, but I don't want just to, and I see in other people releasing other stuff. I don't want that. I just really want to make something that is meaningful and it's cool and it has a metaphor, it has a message, and it walks people through, why I did this way. Well, because you can, if you learn how to do this part, you will have access to these other parts. I feel like that is something we need more. We have incredible tools to learn how to code. We have incredible resources to learn how to design, resources everywhere. What I don't feel like we have a whole lot is places where you can learn how to connect the parts or how to use things, in creative ways. I've been fascinated by the Internet Archive lately. I believe you saw that, just creating. I believe this is Replit is one of these tools that no one, if you're not a developer, you don't really see it. Replit is, one of these tools that is so powerful. This is an IDE, as any of these things that can run code, but it can run as code sandbox, code both backend and front end. And this is not working. Not really cool. I'm the worst at giving demos. I shouldn't just try to give a demo out of the.
It's okay.
Where is it? Vectorizer is this one. Actually, yeah. So this takes an PNG and returns an SVG. Why this matters? This little trick that I learned is using an API called Vectorizer AI. This is the type of content that I want to put. I want to show people in less than 5 minutes how they can do this stuff. This is an API that you can try that allows you to just drag an image and get a very high quality SVG with a bunch of little knobs that you can tweak in terms of, what is the quality of the tracing? How do you want the data to be returned as layered? You can trace colors. You can say like, just give me the paths. A lot of cool stuff. But what is happening here is I took, I think. Oh yeah, thank you so much, world. This is I don't know if people are familiar, but there is a place in the world that we probably know through the lens of the Internet Archive or the Internet Wayback Machine. Archive.org also is one of the largest libraries in the world through the donation of different libraries across the world, through books and time and technology to scan. They managed to have one of the biggest catalogs of books that are scanned and easily accessible. Some of these books are gems right now. So I'm looking at a book from Switzerland from 1972 called Lettera 4. It's a book for typographers, and they're using these books to essentially copy the typeface and just create new letter sets and print things, things for magazines and whatnot. These things are beautiful because you have typography that is, ready to be used. And the experiment that I made last month, where I was trying to connect Figma, which are essentially SVGs and 3D, was, what happens if I vectorize this? And so this is a PNG, a page from this that I essentially manipulate just a bit on Photoshop. And this is the SVG. What I'm telling you is the SVG is literally the SVG. I can scale the crap out of this, or I can simply copy this like so, and go into Framer, Figma. I need to stop saying that, and I can paste it. Paste this wide here. So here I have this, but I can just pick the internal parts.
Nice.
It's a vector.
Wow, that's cool.
And it's what I find interesting is that there are tracing tools, there are plugins. What I'm interested in when I'm trying these things is I want to have apps, functions, whatever, that are easily grabbable so I can pass. So right now this PNG is local. I'm storing it here, but I can say, hey, just copy this URL and scan these pages. And that takes a little bit more time to produce, but I already have the building blocks. I have the API. Please don't steal this. I will probably do something with it, but whatever. But you know what I mean? I'm just passing a PNG and getting an SVG on their side. It's kind of cool when you have, it's not that I have any capacity, it's just some API that was somewhat documented. And so what I like about Replit is that has an iPad app and an iPhone app where I can open these things and I can code and I can iterate. So maybe I'm not on the subway, but maybe in the park and have an idea about something. And I can just open this in my phone and try things and have these things running. It's not only running, as I was telling you, our React application is running a Node application on the back end that in this case is allowing me to fetch assets from Figma. So in this case, this little kind of cylinders with a texture, and that is essentially represented this way. This is coming from Figma. It's coming from one of these.
Yeah, maybe you can show people that you change like a word or something, and then it will be updated like you showed me.
Yeah, so this is sorted inversely.
Cool.
For some reason, it's on the side. So, and this, if I run Retextifier, actually launch text changer, hello into design systems. So I just changed this. This, well, kind of broke here because it's not perfect. What did let's remove this. Actually, let's keep it this way. No one cares about that part. I want to just refresh this. And this is the part I was saying earlier that Figma is not the fastest thing. It's not that it's going to be this way. What it could be possible and easier is to send this through as soon as it's ready or like logged in, you can change a flag and send this query to a CDN and have that stored somewhere. So here it says hello into DesignSystems and has like a little white thing because it's smart enough to capture the part that is outside of the thing. Then that's why it's white. Yeah,
cool.
and the problem, it's heavy, or it takes a minute to load, because when I have this kind of a function that allows me to just add all of these things, what I can say is when it's loading, actually it's 1 p.m. This is throwing me out. I thought it was in the Figma API. One thing I can do is when I'm sending the query to get access to this image, I can say that I want this in the same way that you have the ability to say to Figma, I want to export this into X. You can say that through this. And I thought it was slow because of that. One way to make this faster is just to have less things. So if I just remove the other things, and if I want to refresh again, this should be at least half faster. If it's not, it's because my Wi-Fi is not great. But again, this is the part I was telling you earlier.
That's so cool. Yes. So you told me that you can use Figma like a CDN, like to store your data, right? And then
exactly. So in the same way we're doing
in
this
the browser.
Exactly. What I think what I wanted to say with why this is a powerful kernel. This is something that I can produce with in 3JS with what is called a canvas texture. I'm sorry that I'm out of the canvas texture is essentially what are we doing is we're generating the texture using the Canvas API on Chrome. The Canvas API is powers a way to write bitmaps on memory on the GPU, and it's very powerful, very efficient. You can do amazing things with it. But the challenge is you will never have the quality and the level of control that I have with typography, with assets. So for instance, if I grab, I think I have these are my components. You know, when you're not sure about your own work, right? Where I was here. So if I scale this and I slap it here. Yeah, like so. And I'm gonna center this way. I wanna say, have one with 2 eyes, whatever you can imagine. The only thing I need now is just to refresh. And this thing is going to, it doesn't care about what it is, the content. It's just going to upload an image. And through the power of 3JS, I will have that experience here. So you can see here the two faces here and there.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, it didn't take any effort. I have control. This is obviously is not incredibly fast. So to make this to be faster or more, you know, like faster and more, you know, you can make other decisions to use other image formats or support different colors, whatever. What you need is just to pass the query that I'm doing, but instead of asking directly to Figma, is I can write a tool with ImageKit or other image CDN and ask them to query Figma, and then I'm just requesting the image from them. This gives me global edge-based access, so it means that it's going to load from a computer that is faster or closer to me, and it's going to render faster. That's why I haven't yet kind of published the whole thing, because I want to find a way to make that very, very easy. But I'm very impressed that we have this. I do wonder why tools like Spline and even Framer. I love Spline. I find Spline is a powerful tool.
Yeah, Spline.
I don't understand. It's amazing. I don't understand why I need to export an SVG from Figma and import an SVG into Spline and not have a way to essentially have that node live, or just to be kind of a hot wire between my workflow in Figma and Spline, you know, because I want to have that level of control, you know what I mean? So long story.
Awesome. I mean, this jam could go on forever, the whole night. You have so much incredible ideas and work to
Thanks.
share. I mean, it's always a pleasure listening to you, Davo.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity and trusting me with sharing these things. I really appreciate you, both of you. Still, thank you so very much, Sam. Welcome to this family, and you are amazing. And let's go. If anyone wants to reach out or ask me anything, always open on Twitter mostly. And yeah, let's keep this rolling.
Yes, I mean, pretty sure we will see you speaking at one of the next events again, because you have so much incredible stuff to share. Like I've said, thank you so much, Davo, for also giving credit to other creators and being aware that the community is kind of building this together and inspiring so many people with your work. Go and follow
Thank you so much
on Twitter.
Thank you so much. And it's always about that. You know, we're coming from a generation that remixes a lot of ideas, and it's kind of hard to think that we're inventing something new. But there is an opportunity there by just showing how our ideas are traced back to something else. As we are sharing code, we're sharing design systems and whatnot. Ideas are the most important things that we need to find ways to build, you know, a way to trace back to the origin. You know, there's nothing wrong to say like, hey, I got inspiration from here, because you can just show other people where that source was also inspiration coming from other things. One artist that I love is, I will say this one thing, and I will shut up for the rest of the 2020.
One last thing.
Is Colin? Yeah, probably everyone knows Colin Levin. If you don't know Colin Levin, get yourself introduced by one of the most amazing artists and historians. He wrote a book, I think 2 years ago, that is, I read that book every 2 or 3 months, or even open it for just to, Golan is, again, this person that is not only an incredible creative, but also he has the ability to see something and say, you know, these 12 people ranging from 1940 to 1990 something work on the same ideas in principle. And you know, his Twitter account is a source of not only obscure references, but he is keeping everybody in check in terms of, you know, understanding that it's kind of hard to think about yourself building something new, but we can also own creativity from a different point of view. Definitely guided by Colin Levin in so many ways. He's one of our greatest artists out there. He inspired generations. But yeah, I'm not original here in sourcing people. It's more like trying to be a cool disciple in some way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Davo. We will do a short summer break, and after that, we will be back with more events. There will be more online events. We plan to do some in-person events. Hopefully, meet Sam and Davo in person soon. So we have some events planned for Amsterdam and Stockholm. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do it around October, hopefully. But we'll be back after a short summer break and do more online events, of course. If you want to speak at the conference or the meetup, feel free to reach out to us. Always looking for community members who want to share their cool work with us, right? The Creative Weirdos, Sam. It's a platform for creative, introverted weirdos.
That's it. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yes, I mean, your talk was really cool, so inspiring. So there's no need for imposter syndrome. If you're a first-time speaker, we will be there to support you. We are all introverted weirdos, creative weirdos. So please come and join us and speak at one of our next events. Reach out on Twitter, and this talk will be, or this session will be published on YouTube. If you're wondering, it has been recorded. So yeah, have a great day, a morning or evening, everyone, or good night, wherever you are, and hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye. Bye, Sam.
Bye,
Great job.
Phil. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good
See you
night.
soon. Bye-bye.